and nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry, I wish my ma was here. A young man on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine, he knows he won't grow old. And as the tears come streaming down, at once his mind goes clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries, I wish my ma was here. A lively story well in hand, a joke to soothe your soul. And when it came to arguing, she'd forgive and let it go. And when I cried, she held me, told me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march into the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the sky, they cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, we'll raise a victory cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Yes, we made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Hey Vince, hey Eric, how you guys doing today? I think Vince beat you by a tick there, Eric. Just by a tick, it looks like. I know, you're all scrambling as fast as you can to come on in. Hey AB, how you do? Good to see you're still playing the guitar. You're just as good as ever. Thank you for the good... Oh, well, thank you so much for that. That's so nice. Isn't that nice to hear? Oh, yeah, I know. I took a bit of a hiatus because... I broke a string, and I didn't have strings to replace it, so it took me some time to get my act together, but powerful. Oh, well, thank you, Vince. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, I was sort of wondering, because when an event like this happens, live from the expensive suites of Ryerson University. Well, welcome to Geopolitical Science 101. Sorry, Professor John. Oh, well. You know what, Eric? You're first in my heart. There you go. How about that? I was wondering if a song was going to spill out of me, because that usually is what happens when a traumatic event like this happens. And then I just came to realize, no, I already got one. I've already got one. And what I like about that song is that it touches on concepts like war and the struggle and all of that kind of stuff, but it really puts it in a very human place, in a very understandable, like, something that I think really hits people, and hits people universally, right? That when we're in these difficult times, it pays to remember what really matters. What really matters, you know? And so I find that has a soothing effect to sing that song for me, and I mean, what's the point of playing music and playing these things if not to elicit some kind of catharsis or something like that? As you can see on the screen, right, lead from gasoline blunted the IQ of about half the U.S. population, study says. Leaded gas was banned in '96, but exposure to the poison cost people born before then several IQ points on average, researchers estimated. I'd say that's here in Canada, too. Yeah. We should just let technologies get unleashed in the populace all the time, right? Yeah, we should just, you know, whatever. We should just make something or find a new thing. Fracking can't be doing anything bad to us, right? All of this stuff can't be. It's totally fine. I mean, I think that should there actually be human survivors of this period, they're going to look back and be like, what the fuck were these fucking dumb monkeys doing? Like, the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, holy shit. Like, we're letting people just have like these steel chassis that they get to just zip around, burning gas into the fucking atmosphere. Unbelievable. Did you hear 2 new CBC candidates announced? I did. Leslie Lewis, Roman Bauer. It's actually like Sheree has no chance. Sheree has no chance. The race is going to be interesting to watch. You know, I thought it was going to be more of a shoe-in for Poilievre, but it looks like there's going to be a good battle. Poilievre is still the front horse, if you ask me. He's still the guy. Hey, Branwyn, how you doing? How you doing? Grinning. I eat off lead pates to continue. That's right, goddammit. The Romans ate off lead plates, and that didn't cause them any problems at all. Folks, let's make it 1,000 tonight. Jesus Christ. This I knew it. I knew exactly. I didn't think I was going to be experiencing this crawl up to 1,000 while the fucking war was on. It's exactly as I predicted. I'm deeply, deeply, deeply concerned about hitting 1,000. It's like the self-loathing and all of that is just like absolutely at its peak, and I can't enjoy anything. I sit down and play a video game, and it's like putting ash in my mouth. I just can't do it. I've literally had to ban myself from playing games of chess. Like, I just have to not do it because it's so. Like, everything that I enjoy is just unenjoyable. Nothing is nice right now for me. I'm like in this eternal pit of despair, constantly. Because I'm dead convinced I'm gonna hit 1,000 subscribers and YouTube's just gonna be like, nah, get fucked. Like, I'm gonna get removed like fucking Russell Bentley or something, or like some bullshit's gonna happen. So that's how I feel. It's just a nightmare for me. And or even worse, I'll hit 1,000 subscribers and nothing will change. It'll just be normal. Like, everything will be like this, and I'm just like, ugh. So it's just like constantly loathing. Ancient civilization was way more advanced than we are. It's actually embarrassing. I mean, I think it sort of depends on what you're looking at. Humans have always been a disaster, man. I feel so sad for the Ukrainians falling for propaganda. Plus, we aren't talking about COVID anymore. All the stats on screen, fear-mongering 24/7, stop now, it's all Ukraine. We're going to go through some polling data coming from Canada to show that it's that the propaganda is real here in Canada. It's intense. What do you keep telling us at the end of each video? Yeah, that's right, Eric. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, if YouTube removes me, I could try Twitch or Rumble, yeah. Send $50 to John's Patreon while you're at it. Consider it cheap tuition for the privy of being part of John's revolution. And all of that is so very kind. You better be careful with that kind of talk, dude. I'm going to end up with a big inflated ego. It's the last thing that I need. All right, let's do the number pick, guys. There's enough of you here right now. Let's do the number pick. Let's get this out of the way. This abacus data is really what I want to do today.
For today's number. It's March 9,
That's right, Harry.
2022.
I'm going with the Big 10.
10 balls.
10 balls. Hey, Mock,
Each
how you doing?
Each ball has a number.
We got a couple of 4s.
Numbers 1
Good
through
to see you.
10.
Look at these. Oh, Harry and I have 10s. Here we go. We're doubled up on 10s, Harry. This is it. This is the 10 day. Pick a number.
Pick a number.
Here we go. Here we go.
Today's number is...
Oh, a 3.
3.
AB, it's your day. It's your day, AB. Go do the thing that you've been thinking about doing. Go follow your heart. Don't let your dreams be dreams. Do it, right? You've got the energy of Sir David Lynch in your back pocket. Leave me alone, Eric. Although I did squats yesterday. So I feel good. I feel good about that. Funny thing about God is that he's gay. Do you want to explain that any further? No. Winner, chicken dinner. There you go. Freeland hints upcoming budget to have more money for military. Yeah, we don't need to hint on that. We don't need to hint on that. Zelensky to address Canadian Parliament as Trudeau announces more military equipment to the Ukraine. Like, we know what's happening here, guys. Like, and this is all, like, look, it's a clown introducing a clown to convince clowns to send more bullshit to Ukraine. That's what's going on today. That's what's happening in the world today, right? It's, you've lost 8K on a low animal diet. Good for you, bud. Whatever works, man. Whatever works. It's all about just eat more, eat less, exercise more, right? No, that's right, Eric. That's right. And you know what? I did do squats yesterday. And I did a little bit of yoga today. So I'm trying to get there. I gotta get a bit more regimented about it, I think, though. But I'm really struggling with that. I'm struggling to get any kind of schedule going on, and like I feel like this war has actually just blown my brain away. I just feel so, like, it's been extremely revealing, as we're about to get into, right? Jim Henson, just... Pissed off, that's hilarious, bud. That's hilarious. Hey, Famita, how you doing? Good to see you. Jim Henson puppets are so lifelike now, bud. That's hilarious. That's fucking great. Like, for real. Like, these guys are just clowns. Like, they're just, it's just the theater, right? It's just pageantry. Like, this guy's a literal comedian. Like, he's a literal fucking clown. Like, and we're all supposed to just be like, he's so brave and so, oh my god, yeah. Ugh. So fucking dumb. Meanwhile, Jimmy Dore, right? Ukraine officially adopts Nazi slogan for military. I forget the actual slogan. It's something like, here, hold on. Let me see if I can actually find the clip. Or not the clip, but the still. I recommend this clip. Jimmy Dore has been nailing it with this story. He's absolutely telling the truth about what's going on in Ukraine. My only thing is I wish he would focus a little bit more on the Donbass war. He had Lee Camp on. Lee Camp, who recently lost his show on RT television. What was the Redacted Tonight as RT television? RT America shut down inexplicably. No explanation given. Just literally, they shuttered their doors. So the slogan, "Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes." Right? This is a slogan of the UPA, the Ukrainian rebel army who fought on the side of Nazis. This slogan, "Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes," is now the official slogan of the Ukrainian military. So this idea now, in my view, that, there's Nazis, but there's a small group, all that kind of stuff, fuck that. Fuck that. The slogan of the Ukrainian military is a Nazi slogan. Right? Like, there's absolutely no one in Ukraine who could misunderstand this. Literally, the Ukrainian rebel army who fought on the side of the Nazis did so under the banner, "Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes." This is now the official slogan of the Ukrainian military. Get completely fucked. Get completely fucked. I will. So from this point forward, I will now be referring to the Ukrainian military as the Nazis. I don't see any reason not to. Call a shovel a shovel, right? Yeah, Jimmy Dore is on fire with this, and part of the reason why Jimmy Dore is on fire with this is because he's so well connected to people like Aaron Maté, Max Blumenthal. Aaron Maté, really the only person I have heard take very seriously the Donbass war line. All of these guys like Dore and Blumenthal and all them have brought it up, have definitely like talked about it. But Maté seems to be the only one who actually realizes like how pivotal and how crucial the Donbass war narrative actually is. Because it's the linchpin, right? Like, we pretend like this is a war of, we are fighting a defensive war against Russia. That's what we pretend. Well, the Donbass war shows you pretty clearly that that's a bullshit lie. That Putin is not starting a war, he is joining a war on the side of the defender, right? Like, that's what's happening. And it committed a bunch of anti-Semitic pogroms just before the Nazis invaded, and then after some imprisonment due to them wanting independence from the Nazi occupants, they began to fight alongside the RT America can still be seen on YouTube Live, but RT America as an institution is now gone, DM. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's not that RT America has been censored, although it has been censored in Europe. You can still see RT America in North America right now, but the institution of RT America no longer exists. They shuttered their doors. People like Lee Camp, Chris Hedges, Richard Wolff, Jesse Ventura, Rick Sanchez, all these guys, their shows are gone now, right? Like, the left still hasn't really put it together that these leftists who were providing really strong leftist content are now adrift. They're now gone. Like, their shows are done. So, like, once again, Chris Hedges experiences an abandonment by the institution that he was supported by. Lee Camp's show's gone. Like, all of those people, they're all trying to find it. So they'll all try to find another port to harbor in, but like, they're not going to find another port that's as well established as RT was, right? So it's a huge blow. Like, it is a like a McCarthyian moment for sure. That's what today's video is about, right? And so it's massive. It's Abby Martin's show, yeah, all of that, the Empire Files, like, all of it. It's huge. We still haven't even come to realize how big a deal it actually is. It's a massive deal. Like, and it is an enormous censorship moment. Like, all of the American leftists are now just scattered into the wind, and now have to find a new way to rebuild something, right? Like, it's huge. It's huge what's happened, and if you bring it up in like, one of the primary comments that I get back is like, yeah, good, we should shut down Russian propaganda. Like, Russian propaganda is the fake news of the pseudo-left, right? Like, that all they've got to do is say, Russian propaganda, and it's the end of the conversation. Like, you don't need to go anymore. Breakthrough news is still around. Yeah, and I am sure that all of the, like, if I was China, for example, I would be thinking about, wow, CGTN America sounds interesting, right? Empire Files was part of RT. I thought it was something separate since it is his own YouTube channel. I'm not 100%. I'm still figuring it out. So we'll see how it all falls out. But it is a massive blow. Like, it's huge. It's a huge deal. Like, if you care about the leftist perspective in America, it's a purge. Like, there's no other way to describe it. It's a purge, right? That the only reason those voices were getting any traction whatsoever is because of RT television. That all of those voices had been chased out of corporate America, like CNN, Fox, like MSNBC, all those guys. They were never going to put somebody like Lee Camp or somebody like Chris Hedges or Richard Wolff. Like, they're never going to have those people on their platform in serious ways. Like, it's not going to happen. And so now, like, now they're censorship at its worst. That's exactly what it is. And people walking around saying, like, and what's so fucking crazy to me is, like, our society bends over backwards to make sure that Nazis are able to say whatever they want. Like, if you're a Nazi, your freedom of expression is completely protected, and you have safe harbors in corporate media all the way, right? But if you're a leftist, like, if you're saying, peace, please, let's do peace. So if you're about war in the worst kind, like wars of aggression, including pogroms and like concentration camps and all of this, you need to be protected. Your freedom of speech is sacrosanct. But if you are saying peace, then too bad. Fuck you. Get out of the conversation. Right? That's exactly where we're at as a people. And right now, this is the major document that I'd like to go through today. I'm going to spend a lot of time with this. Canadian support for Ukrainian assistance growing in the light of Russian invasion. Yeah, exactly. The symbols you're seeing are in no way Nazi symbolism, but an interest in Nordic symbology. Yeah, people love tattoos these days. It's like a new age. Yeah, the swastika is just a Hindu symbol for peace and love. That's what it is. Fucking liberals. By Ihor Babakich, I apologize. That's just a butchering, I apologize. Abacus data. Canadians have been closely following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with 7 in 10 outright in support of Canada's assistance to Ukraine's defense efforts today, and only 1 in 10 opposed. This represents a significant shift from support recorded in January of this year. So what that means is Canadians are extremely gullible, extraordinarily susceptible to propaganda, as we will move along here. Have you seen Pierre's views on Ukraine? Very concerning. I mean, he's a far right winger, and he's leaning, like, he's trying to get the Nazis on his side. Like, yeah, I suspect his view is absolutely brutal. Canadian aid to Ukraine in its war to protect itself. So even in the question, right? In light of the current conflict, do you generally support or oppose Canada helping Ukraine in its war to protect itself? So the question itself is in fact laced with propaganda, but that's fine. At least they're showing us the question. This is the breakdown in January 2022. They even give you the quote here. So you can see 22% in support, 27% can accept, or sorry, support. So strong support, can accept, and then oppose, strongly oppose. So check it out. Literally, this is the only people who oppose. And like 34% are basically just like, yeah, whatever. And now it looks like something like 15% of the people who were saying, and oh look, and then something like 8% of the people who were opposed have just swung over into strong support territory. So literally in the space of 3 months, boom, huge growth, right? Almost exactly the same of people who just support it. But in terms of strong support, enormous growth. Enormous growth, right? Here's the breakdown, right? Canada generally, 45% strongly support, 28% support, 18% say they can accept it. Literally only 9% of the population says that they're in opposition to this. The only real deviation is Quebec, right? In terms of its general support, about the same, but it's in terms of its strong support, about 10% down the line. So probably Quebecers seem a little bit more informed on the subject, it looks like. And of course, by party, it's lockstep. The parties are unified in this, right? There is no anti-war option in our politics, right? How closely have you been following the war in Ukraine? Very closely, 37% say. Somewhat closely, 40% say. So that's 77% of people say that they've been very closely or somewhat closely following it. Okay. But not too closely, but aware it's happening, right? Haven't heard about this before this survey, 0%. So no, everybody's heard of it at least, right? Two out of every 8 people are like, I haven't really been following it, but yeah, obviously. Right? Here's the fun one. This is the best one, if you ask me. Remember, basically 80% of the populace says that they have been following it, somewhat closely. Either very closely or somewhat closely, right? Enough to know what's going on, certainly. Okay, which is more responsible for war? So they've asked them. We've asked the populace. We walked up to them. So what this means from Abacus Data's perspective, and we got to give credit to them for even asking the question, right? They are interested in, has the propaganda worked? Has the propaganda worked? Right? Which is more responsible for the war? Aggressive actions taken by Russian Vladimir Putin to expand Russia's power? 90% of respondents. Boom. Russia trying to protect innocent people in Ukraine from persecution and genocide. That's the Donbass War. That's the Donbass War right there. Boom, 11%. And no shocker whatsoever, that aligns perfectly with about the 10% across Canada who are in opposition. Right? This right here shows you the power of our propaganda system. And Vince, it's even more than know the truth. They accept the truth. Right? That's the difference. I've shown people, man. Like I've shown people straight up. Like, we're funding Nazis. There was a coup, right? And they've just like, nah. Like they just refuse. It's like their brain refuses to believe it, right? It's their brain refuses to believe it. And I mean, should we be surprised? Like, should we be surprised? There comes a point where we got to start asking, like, is it just that we're stupid? Like, are we just stupid? Is that all it is? Like, is it just the fucking lead? Like, is it that we're just fucking stupid? Yeah, this photo is literally the epitome of manufacturing consent. 7 in 10 people willing to answer a number they don't recognize. Telephone surveys. I mean, there is that, Harry. There is something to be said about that. Gee, I remember there being another group of people who were obsessed with Nordicism, that obsessed over Nordic cultures and runes. Definitely not related to our times, though, yeah. Very closely is just watching CBC CTV, that's it. Not understanding Donbass, Russian history, etc. It says, yeah. Closely. Yeah, oh, sure, Jen. Sure, Karen. Exactly. But this is crucial, man. Like, these are not insignificant numbers. And it's not close, right? It's not close. That as of this moment, right now, 90% of the culture, 90% of people, when asked, are saying that, oh yeah, it's Putin's aggression. Like, Putin's aggressive, he wants to expand Russia's power, right? That's the reason he's doing it. Even though, like, oh, so you think that Putin is doing this act of aggression to expand his own power, but it's been the opposite of that. He's not getting any extra power from this. How is he getting extra power? Like, explain this to me. How does Vladimir Putin actually end up with more power at the end of the day? Right? Like, he's been removed from the SWIFT banking system. It's created an economic crisis in his own country. Right? Like, it's like, what do these people think? Yeah, move to Odyssey or Brumble. I don't know. We'll see as we go, Box. I don't know if I've ever seen you here, bud, but hope you're here to participate. One of the arguments against democracy, the majority is rarely correct. Well, and what has happened though? What's happened though is that, like, our media has been taken over by the oligarchy, right? Like, we don't have an actual free press. And this moment is really showing you how dangerous this upswell of like, you can't let people have this much wealth. Like, we can't let people have this much wealth, man. It's just absolutely incredible that they've just bought the media system, and you're seeing the result of it. And I am more or less of the opinion that just, like, the reason why the breakdown is so aggressive in this way, right, is because people just don't know. Like, they literally don't know about the Donbass war. Like, and our media is doing absolutely nothing to tell people about the Donbass war. And even the leftists, even the people who I turn to be like, to try to make sense of what's going on in the world and try to pierce through the corporate bullshit, right? Most of them are just like, and I am talking about, like, your Noam Chomsky's and your Chris Hedges and, like, the old guard of leftism, right? They're just not talking about it. There's not talking about the Donbass war. And when some of these leftists do talk about the Donbass war, it's like a passing thing. It's like just like a passing kind of statement. It's like, dude, like the Donbass war is absolutely central, and it looks like 10% of the populace is aware of it, right? Russia trying to protect innocent people in Ukraine from persecution and genocide. Like, I am not convinced, like, I'm not willing to go as far to say that what is occurring in the Donbass is a genocide. Like, I'm not willing to go to that length at this stage. But, like, it's certainly persecution. Like, it's certainly an attack. Like, without a doubt. There was literal ethnic cleansing of Russians in Donbass, and they don't even care. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely targeted. Like, it's definitely, like, an ethnic targeting, for sure. Even Jacobin has bought the mainstream media narrative. Jacobin has lost a lot of support for me. I think that Jacobin is going to come out with some interesting stuff soon. Like, the people at Jacobin want to get the story right, and so I think they're taking their time with it. I haven't seen much come out of Jacobin about this issue, frankly, and I think very much it was the same position I had in regards to Abby Martin, right? That Abby Martin, she's taken her time gathering information, gathering sources, right? She wants to get the story right. And I think Jacobin's pretty much the same, right? They want to get the story right. And when they do start to come out with something, it's going to be something pretty serious, right? I will say that I'm starting to encounter other people that are doing what I am doing. That they are, like, that 10% of people are starting to really recognize if we don't actually start talking about this shit, it's never going to be known. Like, it's never going to be known. And I do think the society is going to turn a corner. We'll see. There's a Ukrainian socialist article is a little concerning. Maybe you're right. Get the story right. I hope so too. Like, I hope so. Jacobin, Jacobin gets it right. Jacobin gets it right, and it takes time. It takes time. Like, they don't want. Like, I can afford to just be like off the cuff. Like I can afford to do this, right? But a place like Jacobin, they need to get it right, and they're going to get it right. So keep the faith when it comes to them. Like, they're not wrong. And it's not wrong to take a moment and take a breath and have a breather and tell the story right. And especially when you're in this situation. 90% of the population is saying that the reason that the war is on is because of aggressive actions taken by Russian President Vladimir Putin to expand Russia's power. Like, even if I believed that was part of the story, I don't think it's the most responsible factor. Like, there is a war going on in the Donbass region, right on the border of Russia. Like, that's the most important thing. I just think you'd have to be crazy. Yeah, they did publish an article about the Azov Battalion. Exactly, right? Like, they're not... and one thing I think it's important to remember about, like, is, like, they've been reporting on this stuff all along. Like, you could probably go back and find a Jacobin article from 2015 or 2016 where they're talking about Ukraine. It's just that Ukraine has become important right the fuck now, right? And I think there's a lot... I think this about Chris Hedges, for example, right? That Chris Hedges knows a lot about European politics in a broad general sense. He knows a lot about NATO, right? He's very well informed in that kind of stuff. But I don't think he actually knows much about anything about what's actually happening in Ukraine in a big and serious way, right? Like, and nor do I think he should. Like, nor do I think, like, he's what a letdown, right? And I'm not like that with him. Like, I in a bit of time, I think I will come, like, he's gonna dig, and he'll come out with some stuff. But, like, and I think that's what's happened to a lot of leftists. There's so much going on in the world, and there's so much, like, to focus on, and there's so much, like, I could see how leftists would be, like, hyper-focusing on Afghanistan right now, for example, with the Afghanistan. Yep, Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone did a documentary in 2016 talking about the Donbass War. He sat down with Vladimir Putin. He interviewed the man himself and talked about the Donbass War, right? Yeah, in his documentary, Ukraine on Fire, which got removed off of Amazon. You can still buy Azov Battalion fucking bullshit. You can go on Amazon.com right now and buy merchandise from the Azov Battalion right the fuck now, right? Nazi fucking merchandise on Amazon.com. You can go there right the fuck now. I could type it in. There it is. You want a fucking Azov Battalion t-shirt from Amazon.com? Off you go. You want a fucking Nazi t-shirt on Amazon? There you go. Took me 2 seconds. Took me 2 seconds. But if you want to watch Oliver Stone's documentary, Ukraine on Fire, on Amazon, you can't. They removed it. Like, eventually there does come a point where I've got to start asking, like, is this happening because people just don't know? Or is this happening because we're fucking Nazis? Like, it is the reality that the reason why we're getting downvoted for talking about the Donbass War, and the reason why we're getting downvoted for discussing the war of aggression that the Ukrainian Nazis are inflicting against the Russian people, is because they don't like it when we tell the truth because they are fucking Nazis. Is that what's actually fucking happening? Right? And you know what's wild? Like, all over the internet, I get banned from subreddits and I get banned from places by liberals. It's the liberals that are banning me. Do you know who's not banning me? Right? Like, so for example, our Canada, which is run by Nazis, right? Like, that's been well known for a while now. They're fine with it. Like, they won't ban anybody. You can talk about how we've been funding Nazis and we've been funneling resources and all that kind of stuff, and they won't ban it at all. Because they're fine with it. Right? They're just like, yeah, we've been funding Nazis, and we should. Right? That's their position. Whereas the liberals, they just ban you. Right? Because they don't want to admit it. Right? Because they don't want to be like, yeah, we're funding Nazis, and we should. Which, is that what this is? Is literally 90% of the society saying, yes, we're funding Nazis and we should. Seems like. Where in the documentary did he talk about the Donbass War? I don't know about it. I don't have it like on my fingertips right now. But I watched the documentary and they do talk about the Donbass War. But if you want to know about the Donbass War, like, the Donbass War is easy. Like, I don't even recommend Oliver Stone's documentary on this. Like, Donbass War documentary. I mean, the Donbass conflict. This is the best one, if you ask me. The Donbass War airport. It's a two-parter, right? I've pulled, like, this literally. The people who did this one have been embedded in the Donbass region since the beginning. And anybody who is denying, like, the Donbass War or any of this kind of stuff, like, for God's sakes, here's they captured an actual, here's the helicopter firing rockets at their airport. This is in Donetsk, right? Ukrainian Air Force attack on Donetsk airport. There's the fucking chopper shooting rockets at their airport. Like, what do you need? What do you need? This lady literally worked at the airport, right? She's given an interview, given a testimony, and then they go in, right? They become, like, they're embedded in the whole thing, right? You're seeing the soldiers fighting this war. Like, and then they start going around settlements and start talking to people. Right? They start talking to people all around. And they're doing interviews with soldiers, interviews with documentarians, interviews with all this kind of stuff. Right? Here's them moving forward on a major offensive against the airport. Here's them shelling the airport. Like, you can see them. This tower. This tower is crucial infrastructure for the Azov battalion, because it's from that vantage point that they're calling shots in Donetsk. That when they shell Donetsk, they need a vantage point, and that tower is the vantage point that they're shelling Donetsk from. Like, this is a fucking major war. Like, this is major artillery fire. Like, this isn't like a minor offensive. This isn't a small-scale thing. Like, look at this. Boom. Right? Like, this is major equipment. The people in Donbass have formed military groups. Like, this is enormous. This is enormous. I think this is only a two-parter. If it's a three-parter, I haven't found it. I haven't found the third part. Unless this is the third part. In any case, right? Like, but it's RT television, so it's propaganda, right? It's RT television, so it's propaganda, right? Russia propaganda. That's it. Like, that's all liberals have. It's Russian propaganda, but guess what? It works. It fucking works. Right? Like, literally, there's a documentary where we can show you straight up how Nazis are fucking attacking, and they even go through, at one point, they go through the Euromaidan crisis, and they show you very clearly how this is a fucking coup and an overthrow, right? They show you the street protests, they show you the violence, they show you the coup, like, which is what it is. Like, this is Poroshenko, right? Who became the leader of the country after the coup, right? Here's the police retreating. Like, I'm kind of confused. If RT is being banned across the board, why is it still accessible on YouTube? Because there's no consistency, right? And people have differing opinions. Like, we can't actually, like, not everyone is banning everything everywhere, right? Like, so RT has been banned in Europe, but it hasn't been banned in America yet. RT America has been shut down, but RT links and things like this are still able to propagate, right? So again, it's let chaos reign, right? Let chaos reign. There's no consistency to any of this. The Parliament of Canada refused to ban Nazi symbols most recently as well, as abstaining in a UN vote to denounce neo-Nazism. Yep, our proud heritage. Exactly. Exactly, man. So, like, here's a fucking literal documentary, but it's RT television, so it's Russian propaganda, right? These are actors. This is staged, right? This footage of a helicopter blowing up their fucking airport, staged, right? All this. Yeah, Elon Musk says that he refuses to ban Russia stuff on his platform. Yeah. And straight up, like, one of the benefits of the fact that there's just chaos in America is that, yep, he's a free speech absolutist, right? And interestingly, you know what's really wild? And it is wild, man. Nazis are actually free speech absolutists. And every encounter I have had with genuine Nazis is that you can say what you like, and they're not going to ban you. They're not going to remove you. They're not going to do any of that kind of stuff. The people who actually believe in censorship are liberals. That's the truth. That it's liberals are the ones that want to censor speech. Liberals are the ones that will ban you off platforms. The Nazis won't. Right? So in a funny kind of way, the people who are allowing this kind of stuff to disseminate, the people who will be most virulent and defend most virulently your right to disseminate this kind of thing will be the Nazis themselves. It's very wild. It's very wild. while simultaneously saying, yeah, but we'll round up communists. Like, we'll round the communists up for sure. And we'll put them in concentration camps for sure. Yep, they'll still attack you though. You can say what you like, right? You can say what you like, but as long as they can attack you, they will. Like, that's what's fucking wild about them, man. Like, that, and it really shows you, though, fundamentally, how non-threatened Nazis actually are by like, the whole narrative of, oh, a good speech beats bad speech. Well, Nazis don't think so, right? They don't think that that's true, right? Or they genuinely believe that what they do is good speech, right? So free speech, because what we do is good speech, right? And we're going to defeat you. Incidentally, we're also going to attack you, right? Did you read a minister in the Russian government called for the nationalization of the factories abandoned by the Western companies? Yeah, I heard that. We'll see. They might have to. Like, it might really just come down to that. Like, it might literally be that Putin will have to sign off on that just because they've got no other alternative, right? If they let you say what you like, they know who you are when it's time to come get you. There's that too, isn't there, Nova Scotia, right? There's that too. I have to admit that because of this, I am moving more towards of a free speech absolutist part of me. I want to ban Nazi stuff. But at the same time, we see the danger of censoring stuff. I mean, I don't think there is an answer, right? Like, I don't think there is an answer. It's literally just vigilance is what's required. And because we are a society based on chaos, well, those who benefit most from chaos, like, Nazis benefit the most from chaos, for sure. That, like, the more chaotic things are, the more they benefit. And so that's why they thrive in the Western environment. And they keep popping up, right? We can't get rid of them. Canada's are aligned on Russia's responsibility for the conflict, with only some marginal soft agreement that the US or Ukraine holds some responsibility for the war. Responsibility for the war. Russia is entirely responsible for this conflict. 57% strongly support, 77% overall. Russia is at least in part responsible. That's a more fair thing. Like, the 83% that are saying that Russia is at least partly responsible for this conflict, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, that's not unreasonable. Saying Russia is entirely responsible, the 77% who say that are nuts. Like, you gotta be out of your fucking mind if you're saying that Russia is entirely responsible. 77% of the populace, right? This 83%, I'm a little bit like, oh, okay. Like, that, especially given how fucking dumb and gullible we are as a people, I'm like, yeah, partially responsible, fine. I can accept that. 77% saying that Russia's entirely responsible? Big yikes. Big yikes moment, man. Like, this is a real, like, I need to actually bookmark this, now that I think about it. I need to hang on to this. Because as we move down the pipe, as we get the 2020 vision, I need to be able to bring this up. This is one of the most disgraceful moments in Canadian history. 77% of people are saying that Russia is entirely responsible for this conflict. You want more evidence that we're a deluded, gullible, hysterically stupid people? Here you go. Like, I could understand 77% saying, like, Russia's at least, partially responsible. Because I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, that seems a reasonable position. But entirely responsible? Entirely? Get completely fucked. Hey, John, should we alienate those here who argued against war as being Nazis? As if this was that was a synonymous with being against conflict? It reminds me of when George W. Bush invaded Iraq and Afghanistan. He used the false dichotomy of you are either with us or with the terrorists. With the tourists. Yeah, there is that. Like, I think that there's a lot of people in, like, an anti-war movement or an anti-war sense that are just, like, they're both sidesing it, and all war is bad, and we should not do war, and all of that kind of stuff, because that's a fair, like, that's their starting point, and I don't think they know much about it, but there's also, like, they're serious people. Like someone like Abby Martin, for example, that is essentially her position right now, is that all war is bad. We are participating in it. We have some responsibility in this. The NATO encroachment line is a big thing that Abby Martin talks about. She doesn't talk about the Donbass war at all, which is heartbreaking to me. We'll see if that changes as time moves forward. Like, this is a woman who literally made a documentary called Gaza Fights for Freedom, but apparently if it's the Donbass people, it doesn't count, right? Like, that Vladimir Putin is just supposed to watch another Palestinian situation happen as they, like, shell the Donbass region. What, if they started building a fucking wall? Would that start to matter to her, right? And he threatened everyone who disagreed with him with an either-or dichotomy, just like we've heard here. Why do you think we should moralize geopolitics? I'm not really understanding your position here, Phobo. So, like, even if we remove the moralization from it, right? So, like, war is bad or good, right? Okay, so let's bring it down to who's the aggressor and who is the defender, right? That's not a moral position. That's just a fact-based position, right? Well, that means that we're fucking wrong, right? Just wrong from our base analysis, right? Like, just remove the idea of, like, war is bad and doing war, any of that kind of stuff, good, bad, all that, right? Well, who's the aggressor, right? Is Russia the aggressor or are we the aggressor? Well, most leftists talk about NATO encroachment, right? But the Donbass war, like, we're the fucking aggressor. Like, we're arming Nazis who are shelling the people in the Donbass region. These are just the facts. Like, so we're the aggressors, right? So if you want to remove the moralization from it and say who's actually aggressively pursuing war, right? It's us. For sure. Like, for sure it is. I think to believe anything else is just to eat the diluted pie, right? And because those are just the facts on the ground, like, and that's not I mean, George W. Bush, when he invaded, he used the false dichotomy: either you're with us or with the terrorists. Like, I mean, George W. Bush, yeah, like was saying that while doing like a Nazi scale invasion. If we moralize the conflict, there's no room for a third party to mediate. I mean, that's the unfortunate truth about the largest scale politics, is that there isn't a third party to mediate. Like, that's the trouble with power politics at the highest level. Like, John Mearsheimer is the guy to listen to on this point, right? And he's very clear-headed and very clear and straightforward. There isn't a third party. Right? That there isn't some large scale, like, force in the world that can mediate these things and sit down and all this kind of stuff, right? Like, there's just the big boys on the stage, and they're gonna push people around how they see fit. What are the solutions that both sides of the Ukraine conflict can agree on? Well, it's up to them, and they are in talks. They are in negotiations with one another, Phobo. Like, there are talks and negotiations going on in Belarus right now. And those talks have been ongoing between Russia and Ukraine this entire time. And it really is just like, how's it going to fall out for them? And because Russia's demands, which are going to be met, like, Russia's the gorilla in the room, right? Like, Russia's the gorilla on the stage and Russia's the gorilla in the room. It is going to get what it wants at the end of the day, right? And its demands are... Ukraine does not join NATO. The Donbass region is recognized as independent. There was one other thing, and I'm completely blanking on it. But Russia's going to get what it wants. Because Russia's the gorilla. And all of this talk of how we're sending arms and sending all, like, weapons and support and all that kind of stuff, that doesn't really matter. Right? That doesn't actually matter. Like, what Ukraine needs, if they actually genuinely want to win this war, is people. That's what they need. And nobody's sending troops. There's, like, stories of, like, independent volunteers, people from Canada going, and, like, people from across Europe. But that's essentially mercenaries. Like, that's essentially mercenary shit. right? And you can't win wars with mercenaries. Like, you can't. Mercenaries are really good for suppressing populaces. That's what they're historically used for. But you don't, if you're relying on mercenaries to get something done, you've already lost the war. You've already lost the war, because mercenaries don't give a shit about you. They care about themselves. First and foremost, they care about themselves. And mercenaries will always do this. They'll always, like think about, like, Game of Thrones, right? That fellow that Tyrion Lannister was always around with. What was his name? Rowan or Robin or something like that? I can't remember his name. And he was a mercenary, right? And he was very clear about it. And he made his path being a mercenary and just constantly betraying people as he went, right? Just to get up in the game, because that was his position. That's how mercenaries are. And, like, the EU isn't committing troops. America's not committing troops. Canada's not committing troops. And so all of this, like, we're giving weapons to Ukraine, it's pointless. They're already armed. They have all the weapons they need to get whatever they need done, right? Like, they don't need more equipment. They need men, and it's not going to happen. So the question at this stage in the game is, will Zelensky and NATO and all of those forces force Putin to actually begin aerial bombardment? That's the big question, right? Because right now aerial bombardment hasn't happened, right? It's been a very steady sort of push into Ukraine. Slow and steady wins the race. It's been very surgical. It's been very, like, strike-based, right? It's been very just, like, tiptoe around and just like, okay, we got a position here, strike it. We got a position here, strike it, right? Like, that's basically how it's been. But now we're getting into, we're not in the end game yet, but we're getting there. And Russia is going to surround Kiev. That's a huge moment. Because if Russia surrounds Kiev, that means that nothing's coming into Kiev anymore. So whatever these Nazis have at their fingertips right then, that's all they're getting. They're not getting anything else. And most importantly, and this is, in my view, the most important piece of the puzzle, the Russians are surrounding the Azov battalion and the bulk of the Ukrainian military in the east, who has been shelling the Donbass region this whole time, right? And so the Russians are surrounding that. Right? The degree to which they have succeeded in that, who knows? Because that's the fog of war, right? We don't actually know. But they are surrounding it. And once they have that position surrounded, that means that those Nazis can't get extra troops in. They won't be able to get relief. They won't be able to get reinforcements. They won't be able to get more gear. They won't be able to get anything at all, right? And also, they won't be able to retreat, right? And once that position is surrounded, Putin and the ambassadors that are negotiating are going to look at the Ukrainian ambassadors and the Ukrainian diplomats, and they are going to say straight up, we've got you guys surrounded. You guys know what the next stage of this is. The next stage is aerial bombardment. Putin flying jet fighters and bombers over that position and carpet bombing it into shit. Like, literally turning it into a crater. Because Putin's not going to send troops into that region because it's just infested with Nazis, right? So he's just going to start carpet bombing it, right? And just level it. No one's going to be able to survive this shit that's going to come for this area. And everybody knows it. Like, the Ukrainians know it, the Russians know it, everybody knows it. Like, so the question that the Russians will have for the Ukrainians are you going to make us do it? Like, are you going to make us actually do it? And you can get ready for the headlines, by the way. Like, Putin bombs Ukraine, right? The horror show of Putin bombing all of this kind of stuff, yabba yabba, right? Because nobody actually understands what's going on and nobody knows what's happening, right? And everyone will be like, oh, it's a war crime and it's an atrocity. It's like literally yet another example of how the West is sacrificing Ukrainians for their war propaganda narrative, right? So that they can just keep pounding the war drum, right? And that's what's going to happen. Like, and so the question is how, the base question, right, is how much Ukrainian blood is the death cult willing to sacrifice to this? Because they're not actually going to sacrifice like European blood or EU blood or NATO blood or certainly not American blood, right? They're not actually going to do that. Like no one wants to talk about how a no-fly zone would lead to a nuclear confrontation, a World War III, and like the only reason they're even bringing up the fact that they should do a no-fly zone is because they know this is going to happen. Like, Putin is going to take bombers and fly over these Nazis in the Donbass region and turn it into a crater. Like, that's what's going to happen. And like the idea that something different is going to happen in that area is foolish. It's totally foolish. And so will the Ukrainians come to their senses and back off on it? Right? Will they actually say, okay, we don't want to literally sacrifice our army? Which is what we're talking about here. Like if you imagine it like it's a video game, right? Well, you've got troops here, and I'm saying to you, great, you've got troops there. I've got literal fucking like hellfire, like bombs that will literally like turn this area into a flat moonscape. What do you want to do? To quote a comment I saw, people think no-fly zones work like Star Wars energy barriers. Yes, exactly. I declare bankruptcy. Like that. Like, I declare a no-fly zone. No-fly zone established. No-fly zone established. Yeah, exactly. Do you want to come up, buddy? Do you want to come up? Are you going to grumble? Oh, okay. You just want pets. And so that's the situation. And there is no third-party mediator. Like, what's this third-party mediator you're talking about? Right? The aliens will show up and mediate. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the major trouble with, like, power politics on this scale. That, like, the Russians are going to get what they want. Even if you believe that the Russians are evil, which puts you in the 90% camp of people, right? So congratulations, you're in the majority, if you think that way. So even if you do, Russia's still going to get what it wants. The only path for us in North America at this point is escalation. And boy, howdy, do you not want that. Right? Like, you do not want to escalate this. Russia is a nuclear superpower. Like, even if you think Russia is this, like, dark evil and, like, Putin is, like, this bloodthirsty Hitler-style maniac, right? Even if that's how you think, right? Even if that's what you're thinking, escalating tensions with him is stupid. Like, not wrong, right? Let's not moralize it, right? Not morally wrong or reprehensible or anything. It's simply stupid. You're literally taking a knife and stabbing yourself repeatedly so that you can go, ha ha, to your enemy. Like, do not do it. Bad decision. Worst decision ever. The current leadership, that's your Bidens and your Trudeaus, these clowns, if they escalate this war, it makes them the worst leaders in Western civilization's entire history. Like, the stupidest decision that has ever been made in the history of Western civilization will be escalating tensions with a nuclear superpower. Like, but hey, you know, we're pretty fucking stupid. We're pretty fucking stupid as a people. So we might see it. Is this the stupidest era? Are we the stupidest right now? Maybe. There isn't even a second party. It's just Russia bad. There's no dissenters allowed. Yeah, but even if you wanted there to be mediation, right? Who's your third party mediator, right? And who could possibly be a third party mediator that both the Russians and the Ukrainians would accept, right? There's nobody. It's just them. Like, that's all. It's just them. Hey Ken, how you doing? 3 more subscribers till 1,000. Oh, only 3? Last I looked, it was 6. So maybe I got a big push of subscribers recently. Who knows? And no one wants to talk about, no-fly zone. Like, that no-fly zone is not serious, man. Like, that nobody is talking about a no-fly zone and taking that at all seriously. No way. No way Ukraine would accept China. No way Ukraine would accept China. And can you imagine? Can you imagine if China came in and tried to start mediating this? Like, NATO would lose its shit. Like America would shit the bed. They would completely lose their minds. Like that there's even if China attempted to, I don't even think Russia would be interested in that. Like, China has been fairly like neutral on this issue, and they consider it to be a Ukrainian 998 subscribers. Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus fucking Christ, guys. I don't even know what to think right now about that. I don't even know how to handle that. Maybe it'll hit 1,000 while the stream is live. I'll have to verify it. You'll make the claim and I'll take a look, and it'll say 999. I'll be like, no, it's only 999. Yeah, like, I get why people, especially the leftist types, I get why the leftist types are want to be like, hey Lonnie, how you doing? I get why they want to be like, war is bad and all that kind of stuff, but like, I'm a realist, man. Like, I'm a realist in this. Like, I'm not willing to, like, yes, war is bad. We can all agree with that. I would prefer that there is no war. But when it comes time to actually analyze war as it occurs, one of the key things is who's the aggressor, who's the defender. And we have it inverted in this society, which makes sense. We've got most things inverted. Like, for example, the U.S. and other NATO members are entirely responsible for this conflict. The U.S. and other NATO members are at least in part responsible for this conflict. 39%. Only 39% is even saying that NATO is partially responsible. Can you fucking believe it? Can you fucking believe that at all? Like, actually trying to be convinced. Like, no, NATO's not. No, NATO and the United States are not responsible, even a little. Not even a little. Not even a tiny little bit. Like, take a nail, put it in your fucking head, man. And like, Ukraine is entirely responsible for this conflict, 15%. Ukraine is at least in part responsible for this conflict, only 26%. Only 26% of people here are willing to say that Ukraine is at least partially responsible. So like, literally, the vast majority of people are completely washing their hands. The US and NATO and Ukraine bear no responsibility whatsoever for this crisis that's happening in Ukraine. None whatsoever. That's literally where we're at. Like, that's so fucking stupid. Like, that's so fucking stupid, you guys. Like I could get on board with if the question was just entirely responsible, because that's pretty far, right? Even I am not willing to say that Ukraine is entirely responsible. Even I'm not willing to say that, like, the US and NATO are entirely responsible. Right? It takes a lot of people to have a hoedown, right? Like, there's a lot of factors in play. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. Okay? Like, my position is as clearly stated as it could be. Who's the aggressor and who's the defender? Right? Like, who's the aggressor, who's the defender? And if you ignore the Donbass war, like, all you got to do is ignore the Donbass war, and you can say that Russia's the aggressor. Right? But if you know about the Donbass war, well, that's no longer true, is it? Right? At least it turns it into a grayer conversation. At least it turns it into a grayer conversation, the Donbass war, right? Like, I am willing to go so far as to say that that makes America, NATO, and Ukraine the aggressors in this conflict. But even if you're not willing to go that far, at least you have to acknowledge that the Donbass war muddies it, right? And makes it a more difficult thing, right? And so if people were responding to the question it was entirely responsible, I'd be a bit more like, oh yeah, okay, I can respect it, but it's at least in part responsible. And people were like, no, Ukraine bears no responsibility whatsoever. But the Donbass war is funded by Russia? What the fuck? Like, Russia is certainly funneling resources into the region as they are requesting it because there's an aggressor shelling them. Like, certainly that's definitely part of it. Like, to pretend as though, like, what did the people in the Donbass region do to deserve the Ukrainian military coming over and starting to shell them? Like, that's the question. What did they do? Right? Near as I can tell, they said, yeah, we don't like that you guys just couped the government and installed Nazis, so we want to do our own thing. And the Nazis go, yeah, we're just going to shell the shit out of you. Like, like this graph right here hurts my heart the most. I gotta tell you, like this one, I'm a bit like, this looks up like a propaganda victory, right? This looks like a propaganda victory for sure, right? This looks like we have lost our ability to have sense, right? Like we have lost the ability as a people, if we ever had it, to be at all reasonable or sensible whatsoever. You're telling me that NATO, US, Ukraine have zero responsibility. They are perfect, pure, angelic angels. Even I'm not willing to say that about Russia. Like, of course Russia bears a certain degree of responsibility, right? Of course, it's fucking war, right? Like, but to say that, like, to make this, oh my God, yeah, the more I think about it, the stupider it gets. 60% of people are either saying they disagree or strongly disagree, or they're not sure if the Americans in NATO are somewhat responsible for this conflict. Like, this isn't a propaganda victory. This is that we are fucking stupid. This is stupid. You've got to be stupid to answer this question. Do you think the US and other NATO members are at least in part responsible for this conflict? And to say, no, not at all. And like, is Ukraine at least partially responsible for this conflict? Nope, not at all. Yeah, they've got Nazis, but when have Nazis ever hurt anybody? Do you believe American hegemony is in decline in world affairs? Yes, strongly no, don't know. What's hegemony? Yeah, like, come on. Like, we're getting into a very dumb place with this. His evidence is showing how the separatists are forcing people to vote with fraudulent vote. Like, it's. Oh yeah, Eric, I agree with you. Like, it is a propaganda win for sure. Like, this is the propaganda win more than anything. Like, this is the big propaganda win right here. This is just fucking stupid. Like, you just have to be really, like, nail in the head dumb to be answering this question this way. Like, unbelievable. His evidence is showing how the separatists are forcing people to vote with fraudulent vote. Like, because this is like a fucking classic fascist strategy. Like, you got to pick one. Either these separatists are weak or they're strong, right? Either they're so powerful that they're just overwhelming force, or they're like, it's so weak that they can be just pushed over. And in this case, they're choosing that, like, oh, these separatists are so powerful and strong that they can. So the separatists are simultaneously non-existent, right? You don't even need to talk about them. They don't matter at all, right, to the conversation at all, right? Or they're so powerful that they can force the entire community to do what they say. It's just annoying. Ugh. Okay. Here we go. Here's where it gets fun. Support government implementing import-export bans. Ban on Russian goods and services. So push Russia to China. Ban on export on Canadian goods to Russia. So shoot ourselves in the foot, right? Stop trading with Russia, thereby stop trading with the fucking rest of the world. Ban on Russian oil, petroleum products. Like, we agree with this. Like people are complaining about the gas price increase, but while simultaneously saying, like, yeah, we should ban that. See, I mean, this is like, these are no-brainer. Like, seize Russian oligarchs' Canadian assets. I gotta tell you, I'm completely fine with this. You want to take the Russian oligarchs' assets? You fucking go ahead. Fuck the oligarchs. I don't give a shit about them at all. This is the most, like, expel Russian diplomats and cut off relations. You're fucking dumb. Like, this is dumb. Like, literally the same people are saying, Russia should do a diplomacy. The diplomacy, they should talk about it. With who? How? You guys are saying that we should cut them off. Not that we were talking to them in the first place. Like, literally 20%, like, and 22% say can. So literally 82% of the country is just like, yeah, I'm totally fine if we just stop talking to these guys. What? Like, that's stupid. Like, that's just stupid, not only in the abstract, but also in the real. Right? Like, don't even try. Like, don't even try diplomacy. Like, diplomacy is gone. Forget about it. Don't even bother sending a diplomat. Don't even bother, like, trying to get somebody in the room. Don't even bother trying to have a conversation. Just don't even bother. That's like below monkey thinking. That's like your brain is pudding. That is straight up just like, yeah, I think this is serious. I think this is very, very serious. I think we are having a serious conversation right now about, are we just fucking stupid? Like, seems like you literally don't even want to try to talk about it. You don't even want to send anybody over and be like, hey Russia, can you not? Not even interested. And yet simultaneously you want to put it on Russia that Russia could come to a diplomatic solution. They should have done a diplomacy, but we're not going to talk to them. Like, yikes. Like, yikes. Support government implementing refugee intake. All UK with relatives can travel freely, right? Like, sure. Ukrainians rather, displaced to travel to Canada visa free. Allow Ukrainians to stay in Canada temporarily. Allow Ukrainians to stay in Canada permanently. Sure. It's still a fucking war. Like, I'm not against the Ukrainians fleeing and seeking refuge, right? Like, in you come. It's still a fucking war. Canadian government spending significant government resource to humanitarian aid. Yeah, of course. Significant government resources to sending weapons. Oh, yeah. Because that's going to help. Significant government resources to stabilize Ukrainian economy. I mean, we don't spend any of this money to help ourselves. Like, this is what's so funny about this, is that, like, we don't actually spend any of this money to help ourselves do this stuff. So this is just, like this is the same people that are like, yeah, we shouldn't talk to these guys. Be like, yeah, we should spend a shit ton of money to send weapons and humanitarian. And let's just bring in all the Ukrainians, right? There won't be any Nazis in there, right? Yeah, bring them on in, right? They never ask, do you support crippling sanctions on Russia if it will affect the spiking prices of your own country? Are you willing to pay more for everything to support Ukraine? And but they don't ask questions like, do you know about the Donbass war? Right? Like this here, like, this is a very carefully chosen question, right? Russia trying to protect innocent people in Ukraine from persecution and genocide, right? They don't actually say Russian people trying to protect people in Donbass, right? They don't even say the word. They can't even say the fucking word. They don't talk about the war. They're not going to tell people about this fucking war. They're not going to let people walk away from the survey being like, he said something about the Donbass war. I wonder if that's a thing. We should find out about it. Attitudes on sanctions. I currently feel uncomfortable purchasing Russian-made products. Yeah, we're honest. Like, And honestly, I gotta tell you, I get it. Like, I feel uncomfortable purchasing Russian-made products. Makes sense. Like, the Russophobia is gonna go through the roof, right? Like, we're for fuck's sake, like, I'm seeing articles like, Russian pianist banned from playing piano. It's like, you don't get dumber than that. Literally, there's a dude here who's from Russia originally, and he's a pianist, and he wants to go play the piano somewhere, and they're saying, no, you gotta stop playing the piano, because playing the piano is gonna support Putin, and it's gonna mean that Putin if you play the piano on stage tonight, Putin wins. Like, that's where we're fucking at. That's where we're fucking at. It's funny how white refugees are welcome, but everyone's freaked out when it was Syrians a couple of years ago. Exactly. Yeah, you're right on the money with that, David. Right on the money. Yeah, refugees from Afghanistan, that's another good one, right? Like, we should ask a question, just straight up. Just be like, would you support open border refugees to brown people? Everybody would be like, no! Would you support open border refugees to white people? Yeah! Like, let's just ask the question, man. I bet people would say, like, brown people, no. White people, yeah. Like, I bet they would. Economic sanctions against Russia should be avoided as they will hurt everyday Russians. 28% agree. Everybody else disagrees. So much for the whole, like, I'm against the government, but I still support the people. I still support the Russian people. We gotta support the Russian people. I'm against Putin. I'm against Putin, though. So much for that, right? Like, so much for fucking that. Ugh. Impressions of Russian invasion. Russia has committed war crimes. Boop, 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 boop. It makes sense that this would be so high because even leftists are saying that that's the case. I haven't really seen anything to convince me of like war crimes are very specific. Like, these are very specific claim. Like, what and I'm happy to be convinced on this point, by the way. I'm happy to be like, I'm sure, like, my position on what Russia is actually doing is that they're a giant monster moving into a country, and even if the monster is like tiptoeing around going, okay, don't blow up people, oh, don't do it, it's gonna happen anyway. Like, I'm sure that Russia has committed war crimes on accident, you know? Like, it's an enormous force, it's an enormous thing, that what they're doing. But of course, for it to actually be defined as a war crime in international law, intention actually does matter. Like, there is a difference between somebody who accidentally, like if you accidentally kill someone, it's manslaughter. Whereas if you plan and instigate it, it's fucking first degree murder, right? No, every dead civilian is not a war crime. Like, war crimes are actually that's a specific legal term, right? And a lot of it comes down to, like, does Russia actually have, like, is their casus belli for war accurate? Right? And that's something that's going to be, like, I have my opinion and that's great, but that's something that's going to be decided in international court. Right? And I'll report on it. I'll happily report on it. Many Ukrainian civilians have been killed. I mean, I'm sure that there are Ukrainian civilians that have been killed, but we don't, because of the fog of war, we have no idea. Russia has launched a full-scale invasion in Ukraine. That is fucking wrong. Like, a full-scale invasion would begin with missile bombardment. Like, that's what a fucking full-scale invasion means in the real world, in modern warfare. Like, when the Americans went into Iraq, they didn't start by just, like, sending troops with tanks in. They started by fucking, like, bombing the shit out of it. Like, shock and awe. That's the strategy, right? That's the strategy. Ukrainians are suffering mass casualties. No, I think that is just wrong. Ukrainian forces are respecting civilian life. Ukrainian forces are respecting civilian life. Of course, everybody agrees with that. Russia has held back in RLS the full might of its forces. Okay, this is actually interesting. Russia has held back the full might of its forces. Most people agree with that. Like, so there's a little bit of sense. Like, yeah, of course they've held back the full might of its. Like, these guys got nukes and shit. Like, yeah. Many strategically placed Ukrainian cities are being occupied. That's... Russia has made significant strategic gains in Ukraine. Yep, most people. And honestly, these are the guys that are answering the question right. Not sure. That's the truth. We actually don't know, right? Like, we actually don't know. Like, that's, I keep talking about this, right? The fog of war exists, right? Like, everybody in the conversation is incentivized completely to lie, and moreover, everybody should. When it comes to war, everybody should lie all the time, and there's no reason not to. Right? Lying is part of the warfare, right? If you can convince people something is real and then use that to your benefit to undercut them and win a strategic victory, you should do it. And that's called the fog of war. So you have no idea what's happening. And moreover, there's nobody who can verify anything. The only voices I have been willing to listen to at all in any kind of serious way are military personnel on the ground, or with significant ties to people who are on the ground. Those are the only people I'm willing to tolerate and listen to. Or like embedded journalists. If you're an embedded journalist like Patrick Lancaster is, or Russell Bentley, I will definitely listen to what you have to say, because you're there and you're observing it as it is happening. So at the very least, I'm like, I saw this with my eyes, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, I can believe that. But, like, a report of, like, this occur, like, the ghost of Kiev, like, that kind of crazy shit, like, this unbelievable story that people just, like, swallowed for, like, a moment. And so questions like this, right? And Ukraine's defense is losing steam. 36% say yes, 25% say untrue. 39% are just like, I don't know. And that's right. We don't know. Like, we really don't. Like, and there's no way to know, right? UK forces have held off the worst of Russia's attacks. 35% say yes, that's adorable. Like, dude, if Russia wanted to fucking blow the place up, it fucking could have many times over already. Many Russians are defecting from their military. Civilian deaths have been minimized so far. Most people are just like, untrue. Although I would argue that that's like I say, it's a giant that's just like tiptoeing around. So I'm dead positive that civilians have been killed. Dead positive. Have those deaths been because the Russian military was just like, go in and shoot a bunch of civilians? No. Like, has it been because it's it's a fucking monster, like, moving through? Yeah. Russian forces are respecting civilian life. Like, this is what tells, like, this is where it gets into dumb territory, right? Like, Russian forces are respecting civilian life. They're Russian, so they're not. Russians are worse than Nazis, so we can fund Nazis to fight Russians because Nazis are bad, but Russians are worse, and so funding Nazis is good as long as they kill Russians. America! Fuck. War outcomes. If the West gets involved in Russia-Ukraine, it risks starting a nuclear war. 70% say, yeah, that's right. And we should do it anyway. Right? Like that, like right up here, we just said. Like, we literally were just like, we should, what people are saying their opinions. Where was that? Where we were like, we should send weapons. Come on. We should send weapons. Ban. Seize, expel. Come on. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, significant government resources to send weapons. So 58%, right? And even more than that can accept it. So 58%. So that's actually 84% of Canadians say we should significant government resources to sending weapons. While simultaneously saying, if the West gets involved in Russia-Ukraine, it risks starting a nuclear war. So 80% of us 80% of us say we should get involved in the Russia-Ukrainian war, while simultaneously saying it risks starting a nuclear war. I know it risks starting a nuclear war, but we should definitely get involved in the Ukrainian war. Like, this is stupid. Like, even if you believe that Russia is fucking like Hitler, right? Even if you're that deluded, that you think that fucking Putin is Hitler, right? You've just swallowed the propaganda to the deepest possible level, right? This is fucking stupid. Stupid. It's just a bad decision. It's just a bad choice. Like, and maybe the worst decision in the history of Western civilization, right? Like the ancient Romans. Like Marcus Aurelius is sitting there being like, you want to fucking provoke a war with a nuclear superpower? What are you, fucking stupid? Like Caesar is sitting there being like, what the I literally got stabbed to death in the Senate. And I think this is a stupid fucking plan. Literally, Nero is there with his fiddle. Rome's burning behind him. He's like, you want to start a war with a nuclear superpower? Like, that's literally what's going on here. It's as stupid as it can get. It can't actually get stupider. Like, we risk a war with a nuclear war with Russia if we get involved. But we should definitely get involved. We should definitely get involved, you guys. We should definitely get involved. Lead from gasoline blunted IQ of about half the U.S. population, study says. Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. I'd say that's accurate, right? Civilian casualties, that's called collateral damage. Civilians generally make up the most casualties, and if Westerners really cared about civilians, they wouldn't support the Ukrainian government, which started the war, isn't allowing Ukrainian men aged 18 to 60 to leave, and is stationing troops in anti-aircraft guns near civilian centers. Yeah, if it was about the civilian casualties, they would just come to a diplomatic agreement. Russia's been very clear about what it wants. Like, it's not a secret what Russia wants. Russia wants Ukraine to not join NATO. It wants it to recognize the Donbass region as independent, and it wants it to recognize Crimea as part of Russia. Right? That's what it wants. Like those are its demands. And incidentally, that's what's going to happen. Like, it's going to get that, right? Because like the Ukrainians aren't going to have a choice at the end of the day. Right? Like, all we're actually discussing here is how much blood Ukraine is willing to spill. That's all we're discussing. Like, Ukraine does not have the power to be able to stop the Russians. Just like, in reality. Like, it's a board game. Right? If it's a board game and Russia's moving into Ukraine and Ukraine is sitting there being like, we're gonna fight to the last man, well, they lose. Right? Like, it's not gonna be like... There's not going to be like the one guy with a gun that keeps rolling sixes, like in a game of Risk. Like, that's not how it's going to go. Like, it's going to be, the Russians are going to win. The question is, how many men does the Ukraine want to lose, right? Or Ukraine rather. Because if Ukraine were to have a shot at winning this thing, that would mean that Europe would be sending troops in. It would mean America would be sending troops in, right? There would be a big push of troops into the region, right? Not happening. Like, straight up not happening. And also, that would be a big fucking mistake, because it would be an enormous escalation. Incidentally, we didn't even ask people the question. Should we be sending troops? We didn't even ask, right? We should be sending weapons, though, right? Sure, we can send, another warehouse full of weapons, which they don't need. Like, they don't need that. They already have all the weapons. Like, I only have 2 hands. I can only hold 1 assault rifle. right? If I have 20 assault rifles, well, I guess if this one breaks, right? Like, aggression is one of the core crimes in international criminal law. It is the thing that upon which all things pivot. And that's why I focus on who's the aggressor and who's the defender, right? Because the defenders do war crimes. Like, let's not bullshit ourselves. People who are defending in a war do war crimes, for sure. For sure they do. But that's Cold War, right? Like that's the spirit of war. That's how war operates. It's impossible to avoid, right? But who's the aggressor matters. That's what really matters. Like that's what the Nuremberg court at The Hague after World War II really focused on, because they were set on like, how do we distinguish? Because all sides were doing the same shit, right? All sides were doing the same shit. And if we tried to peg the Nazis for this, well, the Americans did it too. So did the Soviets. So did the British. So did the French. Right? Everybody was doing this shit, right? So if we peg the Nazis with that, well, and how they came to understand this and enshrine it in international laws, well, who was the aggressor here? Who was actually making the war happen? And this is easy to understand. It is actually easy to understand. If you come onto a fist fight and you see two guys beating the shit out of each other, right? And it gets all broken up and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, can you imagine how silly it would be if you said to both sides, well, both of these guys, like, hey, both of you were punching, and so you should be punished equally. And even if one guy was literally just like walking around trying to kill this guy, while this guy was just like, doop, 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 doop. Like if I try to rob somebody, right, and they defend themselves, I think you'd be insane to pretend like the guy defending himself carries the same amount of blame as the guy trying to rob him, right? Or trying to kill him, right? And you understand that. Everybody understands that. Like, if you saw a guy who was just standing there at the bus stop, like, reading a book, right? And somebody walked over and just started beating the fuck out of him, trying to rip open his wallet, trying to get his shit, right? You're not going to look at that and be like, wow, those guys just had a fight and they're both equally guilty of, right? That'd be insane. Like, you understand that there is an aggressor and there is a defender, right? And even if in the process of that fight, the defender killed that guy, right? Like, if they were fighting and the defender punched the guy and the guy went down and died, you would say that is unfortunate, but the defender's not the one creating the circumstance, right? Who's the aggressor matters so fucking much, right? Which is why I keep talking about the Donbass War, because the Donbass War is the pivot point of the conversation. And if you just ignore it, then you can pretend that Russia's Hitler, aggressive, like all senseless kind of stuff. But once you know about the Donbass War, it at least muddies that conversation. It at least creates a conversation of like, oh wait, like the Donbass people were being shelled by the Ukrainians? Well, what the fuck happened there? Well, they declared their independence and they started getting shelled? That doesn't seem right. Like that seems like not as clear cut as Russia invades for no reason, which is essentially what people are saying, right? Russia invades for no reason. Like, Russia wants more power for itself, it invades. Like, cause we're fucking thick. Cause we're just like lead from gasoline. Like, that's what's going on. Ugh. It is preferable that Ukraine is taken over by Russia, and if it helps avoid a bigger war between... Get this, dude. Like, look at this shit. Like, unbelievable, dude. Like, this question really shows you how fucking bloodthirsty we are. Like, this is no longer just dumb. It's bloodthirst. Like, we are, like slobbering, and we've got, like, blood coming out of our eyes and ears, and we're just, like, holding knives, being like, yes, blood for the blood god. It is preferable that Ukraine is taken over by Russia if it helps avoid a bigger war between Russia and the West. Only 24% of the populace agrees with that. That's fucking bloodthirst. There's no other way to describe this. Like, that goes beyond stupidity. That's literally bloodthirst. Especially because there's no evidence whatsoever to show that Russia has any interest whatsoever in taking over Ukraine. Right? Like, they keep saying, what do they keep saying? That they want to see the Donbass region independent. They want the Crimea situation officially recognized and resolved. And they don't want Ukraine to join NATO. That's what it wants. Russia does not want to take over Ukraine. It doesn't want to attempt to govern Ukraine. It wants Ukraine to be independent. That's what it keeps saying. Over and over and over again. They're from a very practical position. The Russians are completely disinterested. They don't want to expand the border of Russia to take over Ukraine. They don't want it. They're not interested in putting in the governors and having the elections and doing all this stuff. They don't want it. Not interested. 0% interest. Right? And how do we know that's true? Because they keep saying it. Because they keep fucking saying it. And there's literally no evidence to show that they're interested in taking over Ukraine at all. Right? Like... But, like, this is bloodthirst, man. This is literally like, let's kill Russia. Let's kick this thing off. I've played Fallout. I played Fallout 3. I did real good in Fallout. Yeah, I went around with my gun and I cleared out those settlements. I did real good in Fallout. I'll do great. You know, once the nukes drop, I know exactly what to do. You know, after the nuclear war, right? I'll you just set up a new settlement. People give you quests, and you go around with your gun, and when you see a mutant, you just shoot him, right? You bring up the VAT screen and you shoot him. I did great in Fallout, so you know, I don't worry about nuclear war. Your nuclear war is fine. Like, this is stupidity blended with bloodthirst. People are living in a delusional dream world, where they literally think their video game experience applies. Like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Like, this is literally, I shouldn't say literally, but this is, the analogy is, hey, if I wanted to steal your purse, would you just give up your purse? Or would you fight to the death for it? Like, the option is I stab you in the throat and you bleed to death, or you give me your purse. And most people, when asked that question, are like, I would rather die than give up my purse. Like, oh, okay. Like, no-fly zone. Institute a no-fly zone. All Canadians, 65%, want to institute a no-fly zone. Agree nuclear war is a risk. Disagree nuclear war is a risk. Lead paint. What are you guys talking about? Talking about that, you should put the 5-minute video I posted. I'm sure the Russian troops did save a person's life. Like, this is the thing about this kind of stuff. Like, when it comes to boots on the ground, like, yeah. Like, I'm sure that if the Nazis were active today, like, if it was Hitler going around, you could find a video of Nazis saving people's lives. Like, that's what makes this so complex, right? It's that humanity gets involved, right? And humans are very complex and contradictory creatures. The last one, there are various documented events of them there providing people food trucks. Yeah, the Russians, I've seen this stuff. They'd probably say it was propaganda anyway, yeah. They just did that to film it. They just did that to film it and disseminate it into the populace. But who cares what Canadians think? Canadians are saying this shit. Like, Canadians are saying this shit, dude. Like, who cares what Canadians think? Like, for real, like, Canadians are saying, we should send weapons, but if we get involved, we'll build a nuclear war. Like, who gives a shit what we think? Like, we are the last people to pay attention to on any of this shit. This fucking poll makes us an international embarrassment. If I was living in China, India, the Middle East, Latin America, Russia, certainly, I would be looking at this poll going, oh, Canadians are fucked up. Jesus fucking Christ. That's what I would be saying if I was living in most of the world, right? Like, if I was living in most of the world, I would look at this poll and look at this data and be like, oh my Jesus fucking Christ. Like, do not trust Canadians. Do not trust. This is my statement to the rest of the fucking world. Do not trust us. We are stupid. Like, we are stupid. Like lead paint in the water stupid. We are bloodthirsty. We are bloodthirsty. We are raving for war. We are so craving it. We desire it. It's in our blood, right? Like, do not trust us. Don't look at the smiling face. Don't look at the A. Don't look at the like, dude, look. Don't pay attention to that shit. That's the smoke screen, right? Canadians are so nice. Yeah, they say sorry all the time. That's the fucking smoke screen. When push comes to shove, we want to go to war. We are bloodthirsty and we are stupid. We are so stupid, you guys. Like, this is an international disgrace. The rest of the world is right to be scared of us and to not pay attention to us. Yeah, Canada. Okay. Whatever you say, buddy. Like, yikes. Yikes. Ukraine, backed by NATO, is waging a war against Russia that they can never win. Yeah. The longer they stay in the fray, the larger the disaster will be. Baseball analytics. Yeah, and like, the whole point of all of this, and what's so fucking pathetic about all of it, is that it really is just the military-industrial complex, like Raytheon, all these guys, being like, oh, geez, we can make a lot of money giving weapons to those Ukrainians. Yeah, we should get more weapons into Ukraine. Let's get more weapons into Ukraine. Because who's paying for that? Right? It's not them. They're the ones making the money. Right? We're basically just trading Ukrainian blood for dollars for Raytheon. Like, that's fundamentally what it is. Right? That's what makes this whole thing so disgraceful and sad. Like, from the military-industrial complex's position, they're like, oh, these Ukrainians, they want to bomb Donbass. They should bomb Donbass. We'll sell them weapons to bomb Donbass. Great. No, we don't care. Like, that, and that's what's driving it. That's what's driving this whole conflict. It's just a bunch of fucking war manufacturers and, like, weapons manufacturers, Tony Stark, right? Just want to sell weapons. They don't actually give a shit about what the conflict is. They don't care. Nor do they care if you're a defender or an attacker, right? They don't care at all. They'll gladly sell weapons to anyone, right? If Russia approached Raytheon and said, hey, can we buy some weapons? Raytheon would say, abso-fucking-lutely, off you go, here you go, right? And then they'll turn around and look at Ukraine, and Ukraine will be like, hey, we need some weapons. And Raytheon will be like, yeah, absolutely, here you go. Right? They don't give a fuck. They don't care at all. They don't care about the politics. They don't care about the humanity. They don't care about the blood. They care about money for themselves because they're fucking weapons manufacturers, right? This is all they care about. They just care about deplete the ammunition. They don't actually care if all we did is took the ammunition and just shot it into the ground, right? If we just bombed a desert, like this, if we just found a section of the Sahara Desert, we all just said, let's just drop all our bombs here, right? And then replenish our supply. The weapons manufacturer would be like, great, right? So we're just like looking for an excuse to use weapons so that we can make these guys rich. That's fundamentally what this is all about, right? Like, the conflict itself and the politics itself is just the excuses for that. Like, it's unfucking believable to me that this is basically how the American economy works now. But Putin will always break his agreement. Well, the history shows that that's not the case, but who gives a fuck about the history, right? So yeah, all I really need to do is just what I give Russia Waters asking for, and then allow Russia after the fact to prove us all the proof is all they were lying, and then you go ahead and ignore my message. It was speech to text, and it came out senseless. I am so happy I just read that out loud, content, that I'm gonna do it again. I need it. I need the levity. So yeah, all I really need to do is just, what give Russia Waters asking for, and then allow Russia after the fact to prove us all the proof is all that they were lying. And then you go ahead and ignore my message. It was speech to text. It came out senseless. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Contin. I appreciate it. I feel like I just read aloud the inner monologue of the average Canadian right now. I feel like that's essentially the inner monologue of the average Canadian. Just like, we should give weapons to Russia because we want a nuclear war with them, because that'll show them that we really mean what's business after our city gets nuked. And I think that it's important that we stop, that we help the Ukrainians. And gas is $5 a gallon now, and I want gas to be low, but we should blow up Russia and institute a no-fly zone so that when they nuke us, we can say, hey, there was a no-fly zone, so no takey-backsies. But I was told Putin said he doesn't recognize Ukraine to be a country. Oh my God. Can you imagine? Can you imagine actually believing that? Eat the rich, choke on plastic. Situations leading to Canadian forces in Ukraine. If Russia tried to move beyond Ukraine and into a NATO country, 45%. So even as bloodthirsty as we actually are. So we did ask, when would we accept troops? Okay? If Russia tried to move beyond Ukraine and into a NATO country, 45% of Canadians say troops, right? Which is a major escalation, right? I'm not owned. No, you're not owned, Contin. That was a wonderful contribution, dude. I can picture it. I picture it. You're like driving your car. I'm imagining you're driving a car right now, and you're listening to me, and you're like, you know what? I want to put a comment, so I'm gonna hit this button. And it goes, and then you start talking. You're like, and I imagine it was very thoughtful, Contin. I imagine it was very thoughtful. You're just driving, and you finished, and you hit the button. You went, yeah, that's good. And then I imagine that you're like, hey, say that back to me. And then it says it back to you, and you're just like, well, too late now. Yeah, just ignore that message. It was speech to text. It came out senseless. And you're just driving. And then I did that bit, and you're just like, fuck. God bless your contribution, friend. God bless it. I need the levity, dude. I need the levity. Here is an impression of me when I'm not doing this stream. Fuck this dish. Fucking, I gotta wash these fucking dishes and making potatoes. Fuck this. I'm like playing a video game. I'm literally like playing something like Diablo 2, and I'm just like moving around being like, fuck these stupid fucking, gotta pick up these, gotta fucking shit, fucking, gotta walk my fucking dog and fucking shit, fuck. So I need the laughs, man. I need the laughs. Boy, do I need them. I think we all do at this stage in the game. All right. If Russia tried to move beyond Ukraine and into a NATO country, well, first of all, that would basically, like, I would be eating so much shit if that happened. Can you imagine? If Putin just said, like, yeah, now we're doing Poland. Yeah, we took over Ukraine. What do you think, guys? Poland? I'd be like, all right, Putin's a problem. I would eat so much shit. And everybody would shit on me, and they would be right too. Without a doubt. If Russia tried to move beyond Ukraine, and into a NATO country like I don't know, Moldova. Let's open the fucking map. Let's open the map. Come on. Here, I want to see if I can actually name other countries that are around Ukraine so that I look like less of an asshole. It's not Estonia. I think it's Latvia. I think Latvia is just to the north. Just to the north. And I know Poland is right the fuck there. Poland's the big one. Because Poland is they're the ones that have the real reason to not be too happy about Russia generally, if you ask me. Like, more than any other nation, if the Poles stand up and say, we don't really care for Russia, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from. There's one right here, and I'm blanking on it. So if this is Ukraine, and I'm not 100% accurate, there's one right here, and I'm completely blanking on it. Poland is here. I think this is Latvia. No, Belarus. Fucking Belarus. Belarus is up here, and then it's Latvia and Estonia and all those guys. Belarus, how can I fucking... Belarus, obviously. Russia literally moved troops into Belarus and then moved them down into Ukraine. So Belarus is here. Poland is here. What in the fuck is right here? There's something right to the west of Ukraine. Oh my god! And I'm gonna look at it. And I'm immediately. It's not like Slovakia or Slovakia. Oh, it's gonna kill me, guys. It's gonna kill me. Okay, I gotta look. So there's Moscow. We're walking into Kiev. Moldova, I was right about. Slovakia! I was right! Slovakia! Hungary, Romania, fuck. Yeah, I should have known. Slovakia, I said Slovakia. Da 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 da. If I had said Hungary or Romania, I think I would actually walk away from that feeling pretty clean. Slovakia, and I think I didn't say like Slovakia. I think I was like Slovakia. Like it was like, I think I could claim a technical win. A technical win. Yeah, Latvia. So did I say Lithuania? I don't remember. Romania doesn't count. Why doesn't Romania count? Mocked. Why doesn't Romania count? It's its own thing. It's here, right? I think if I had said Hungary, I think that's winning. I think that's the victory. Like I think I can do like a technical win with Slovakia, but Hungary is definitely like Budapest. Come on. That's like the Ottoman Empire. Like I should know where the fucking Ottoman Empire is. You know? All right. Romania has a bunch of regions which aren't ethnically Romanian. Yeah, no, you're right. Like, I mean, if you want to get into like the really big, and I'm sure, like this is a border that was drawn by British people, like all that stupid shit, right? So I feel like so many problems that are happening in the world right now is because British people went, that's a country. Now you've got democracy. I'm sure that'll work out. You all have disparate and different demands and different worldviews, but this British way of communicating, that'll work out. Have a country. Like, that's essentially, like, that's Iraq's story. Like, have you noticed how, like, recently, South Korea just had an election. South Korea had an election that was literally 50-50. Like, literally, it was like 49% for one person and 48% for the other person. What's up, Kami? About 1K? Yeah, keep going. Oh my god, nut milk. I gotta tell you, it's killing me. It's killing me, man. It's killing me. Like, it's like a dagger in my heart. All the time. All the time. Because I know once I hit 1K, like, the rules change, right? And then I've actually got to apply. I've got to, like, apply to YouTube and be like, hey, I could be a thing. And the idea that YouTube could just be like, nah, right? Like, that's what I think is actually going to happen, by the way. I actually do think that YouTube's just going to go, nah, that's okay, bud. We ban leftists. Get the fuck out of here. That's what I actually expect. And I'll basically be like, okay, starting from ground zero. Start all over. Okay. Situations leading to Canadian forces in Ukraine. If Russia tried to move beyond Ukraine and into a NATO country, so like if I think like into Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Moldova seems the most likely one, honestly, if it were to occur. But they're not going to do that. But even if they did, like 45% troops on the ground, okay. This is where it gets stupid, though. If our NATO allies were going to take this step as well, so literally, like, if your friend jumps off a cliff, would you also jump off a cliff? 44% of the country is like, yeah, absolutely. If Russia used a nuclear weapon against Ukraine, yeah, I think if nukes came into play, there would be that would be a game changer, right? I think the rules would change. If all the other measures and sanctions taken were not enough to stop mass civilian casualties in Ukraine, which aren't happening at all, so this is sort of a dead-end question. There are no circumstances where I would support having Canadian troops in combat against Russia, 23%. So what that means is that even though only 10% of the country, only 10% of the country thinks that Russia is not the aggressor in this conflict. So that means that another 10% are smart enough to realize that putting troops in this is a bad idea. Like, what do you keep? Stop being so pessimistic. Never, Eric. Never. I've got to prepare. I've got to prepare. I can't walk into the thresher without eyes open. Yeah. It is a possibility. Like let's real talk about the nature of the channel and about this channel. It is a possibility. It is a possibility that I will apply to YouTube after I meet their threshold and they will say no. It's a possibility. I would like it to not be the case, but it definitely could happen. And we are hitting a rubber meets the road moment. And I've got to err on that side. I can't fool myself, because if it goes that way and I'm fooling myself, it will devastate me. It will devastate me, right? So I've got to at least put into my consciousness that even a shred of doubt that yeah, but exactly as you say, right? So I've got to say to myself, if it doesn't happen, that's fine. If it doesn't happen, that's fine. I'll just keep moving, right? Just like I've always done, right? That nothing in my life has ever worked. Nothing in my life has ever worked. I don't see why this should work, right? Like, why should this work? Nothing else has. Everything else has collapsed, always. So why should this work? And I've got to be prepared for that, because it's more likely. My entire life's experience has been that. I don't see why this should be any different. And the only reason I'm doing it is because I want to. Because there's nothing else to do. There's like, it's either do this or just, like, I don't know, just go fucking into a field and shoot myself, I guess. Like, I know that's grim, but, like, unbelievable what's happening in the world, and if I don't talk about it, like, this is like my therapy, by the way. Like, this is how I deal with the world. Like, this is how I deal with the world. This is how I deal with what the fuck is going on. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what it is about my consciousness and who I am or any of that kind of stuff. But if I don't actually talk it out like this, and if I don't actually, like, express myself this way, I just blow up. I just lose my fucking brain. So I found myself kind of sitting around talking about it or thinking about it anyway. So I thought, hey, why not do a show? Why not just film it? And the really beautiful part about it actually has been you guys, has been the chat. The chat has been the best part, honestly. Just the talking to you guys about it, the questions, the pushback, the talking through it, people convincing me that I'm wrong or that I need to alter my view or any of that kind of stuff. Like, I really don't mind that. I don't mind when people come in here and start pushing at me and start trying to move me off my position, because I don't want to be wrong. Like, I don't want to just mindlessly believe something that's wrong, you know? And I would prefer to be on firm ground, right? That's my preference. And so I quite enjoy it. And you guys are the reason why this is so beautiful. And I hope that I'm enriching your life somehow. And because I know that you guys enrich my life. For sure. Like, for sure. It makes it so great. And to know that I'm not isolated. Like, even if you don't agree with me, I don't think that matters to me at all. Even if you're in the 90% of people who think that Ukraine is completely blameless. No blame whatsoever. Ukraine is pure and innocent, a little baby lamb. A little baby lamb that the crazed maniac Putin Hitler has blah, 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 blah. Even if you're like that, I'm glad you're here. It's dialectical. That's what we should start doing, man. We should start saying dialectical the way that we used to say radical. Dialectical. Brilliant. Okay. Canadian government performance. Supporting sanctions and penalties on Russia, Putin, and his circle. 46% say we're doing a good job. The gray is as well as can be expected in the circumstances. Which, I think that's probably the most honest answer. Right? As well as can be expected in the circumstances. If it wasn't meaningful, I wouldn't be here. But I have to say that I like to be here because it allows me to talk about this stuff with someone who actually understands the problem and care for it. Dialogue is good. Yeah. That's nice. That's nice to hear, guys. That's nice to hear. Working collaboratively with our allies to put pressure on Putin. Helping with the needs of those who are fleeing Ukraine. Providing funding to help Ukraine through the conflict. Providing military equipment. Supporting Ukrainian fighters with training. I mean, I don't know. Most people are just like, yeah, as well as can be expected in the circumstances. Really. Like, supporting Ukrainian fighters with training. You mean the Nazis? You mean the Nazis that we fund? Is that who you're talking about? Are you talking about the literal neo-Nazis that we arm and train? Yeah, we're doing a great job of that, eh? Yeah, Canadians are like, yeah, as well as can be expected when we arm Nazis. Most still optimistic about outcome. Okay, here we go. Outcome of war. Okay, this is interesting. Russia will take over Ukraine and the rest of the world will eventually stop fighting that. 26% think that that's the case. I mean, even Russia doesn't want to do that. So, Russia will take over Ukraine, but the fight will continue, and eventually Russia will exit. 31% think that's the case. Here's the difference, okay? People think about this the way that... let's finish the graph. Russia will be stopped from taking over Ukraine by combat and other pressures the rest of the world is mounting. 43% thinks that's the case. So these guys are going to be rudely awakened, right? 74% of the population is going to see the actual outcome of this. Unless it escalates into fucking something very serious, which it could. It definitely could. But the actual most likely outcome of this... And interestingly, this graph doesn't even ask the question of what, because this is how you know we're so heavily propagandized. The major difference between, like, the American invasion of Iraq, for example, is actually the perfect example, okay? Because when America invaded Iraq, just like fucking Libya or any of these places, it did so by saying, we're gonna defeat terrorism. This is a war on terror. We're gonna spread democracy. Okay, well that's not a goal, right? That's not a goal. That's very much just a never-ending, endless war. That's literally just like, yep, we're gonna fight terrorism, right? And I've been accused of this Bush era kind of thinking by saying like we should fight Nazis. Okay, but like the difference between what the Americans did in Iraq and are still doing in Iraq and what the Russians are doing, the Russians have clear goals, right? They have clearly stated objectives. that they have repeatedly stated over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? The goal of the Russian invasion is Ukraine does not join NATO, recognize that Crimea is a part of Russia, recognize the independence of the Donbass region. Those are the goals, right? That is what the Russians are saying at the table, and you'll note that that's not included in this, right? And so I guess I'm just not part of this graph at all, because I think that the outcome of the war will be that Russia will take over Ukraine. I don't think Russia ever takes over Ukraine, right? That the Ukrainians will they will agree to the terms. Like that's eventually what happens, is that the Ukrainians agree to the terms. And the question is just how much blood do they want to spill before they're willing to accept the terms? And the terms are very simple, right? Ukraine does not join NATO, which, given that like NATO has betrayed Ukraine in serious ways. Like NATO has absolutely already betrayed NATO. NATO has already betrayed Ukraine in serious ways. Right? Like, if you're in the Ukrainian government, you're not looking at NATO being like, yeah, they're great. They're really helping out. Like, you have put two and two together and been like, yeah, we got fucking led down the garden path here. We got totally fucking abandoned. NATO has fucking abandoned Ukraine in significant and serious ways on this one. Right? And Russia is never, like, it's probably not going to ever, like, take over Ukraine. It'll take over Kiev, and it'll blow the shit out of the Nazis in Donbass. But the Ukrainians will likely just commit to the Russians' terms, and then the Russians will withdraw. And incidentally, when the Russians withdraw, the West is going to be like, yeah, we did it! Russia surrendered! They left! Meanwhile, the Russians are like, well, we got everything we wanted. We want NATO doesn't join Ukraine, Donbass independent, and Crimea. Like, that's probably what's going to happen. Like, unless it, like, devolves into insanity, which it definitely can. Like, it definitely can. As we have seen, like, we are very stupid. Like, we are like lead paint in the water stupid. Like, we're like very, very dumb. So it definitely could go down that way. But if it doesn't, the most likely scenario is that the Donbass region will become independent. Likely two separate states, right? Luhansk and Donetsk, right? Although they could agree to be a single state. That's up to them. Ukraine will agree to be neutral on the subject of NATO, and might move forward to join the EU, which Russia was always fine with. And Crimea will officially become recognized as a part of Russia. Like, that's the most likely scenario. And it's not even a question that's being asked. You can tell. Freedom Canada, new here, came from Ukraine videos. Do you really support Putin going to war? Okay, Freedom. I appreciate and value the question. Welcome aboard. I hope you're here to participate and not just flame, okay? And not just be a total Christ thing. Once you understand about the Donbass war, okay, so I'm just gonna hit you with this as fast as I possibly can. There was a coup in Ukraine, 2014, a NATO-backed coup. We literally have the Secretary of State on record, like in a video. We've got confessions. That everybody agrees it's a coup. The only people who don't think it's a coup are the citizens, or like people on the ground. But anybody who's actually looked at the situation is like, yeah, that's a fucking coup, right? So there was a coup in 2014 by the Nazis, the Azov Battalion. And how do I know it was the Azov Battalion, right? How do I know it was the Azov Battalion that was at the heart of that? Because they admit it. I literally have a video of them confessing. Like, so if you're going to try to convince me that Nazis didn't coup the government, I think you're out to lunch. So Nazis coup the Ukrainian government in 2014. Immediately, sections of Ukraine seek their independence. Why? Because their government just got couped by Nazis. Right? Reminder, Nazis killed 27 million Russians. Between 25 and 27 million Russians died at the hands of Nazis. Nazis just couped the government. So regions of Ukraine, such as the Donbass region right here, right, Crimea, immediately begin the process of saying, maybe we don't want to be part of Ukraine anymore, right? Because these people are largely Russian, right? There's like literally Russian citizens living here. Like and remember, like Ukraine used to be part of Russia. Like this connection here, the idea that there's like a border drawn and they're like completely separate. Well, Ukraine was part of Russia for longer than it's been independent, right? So there's a lot of cultural crossover going on there, right? So this area here, it says to itself, you know what would be great if we were independent. So do you know what the Nazis did, right? The Nazis that performed a coup in Kiev, they rolled over here, they set up shop here, and they started to bomb the shit out of Donetsk and Luhansk, right? Like, you can literally go on YouTube and type in Donbass War documentary, and the one I highly recommend watching is this one. The Donbass War Airport Part 1, right? This takes you through from the beginning, through the Euromaidan crisis, right? Where the Nazis fucking coup the government, right? You got footage from the this is from Kiev, 2014. Here's the fucking coup, right? This is the coup, which the Nazis take credit for, right? And then it moves you along. It goes through interviews. Is this it? There's the helicopter. We've got footage of a helicopter. I think this is it. Is that it? No, I think it's back here. There's footage of a helicopter literally firing rockets at the Donbass airport. Yeah, this is going to be it, I think. And so they start bombing the airport in Donetsk because, yeah, this is the footage right here. Here's a Ukrainian helicopter shooting rockets at the airport in Donetsk. This was the start of the Donbass War. And they wanted this airport because it has infrastructure in it, a tower, that is that gives a good vantage point for them to spot targets in the city of Donetsk to begin shelling. And that's what's been going on in that region since 2014. Okay? So to re-encapsulate what's happened, to summarize, right? And I could keep playing this shit. You want to see the war, right? You want to see the war, right? Here you go, right? Like, this is all happening on Donbass. This is all well documented, right? This is the tragedy of the war, right? Like the and confessions, conversations, right? The destruction, and of course then they go on to document their attempt to seize back the airport. Right? It's a fairly major conflict that's happening in the Donbass region. Nobody in the West gives a shit about the Donbass people. Like, nobody in the West. So to summarize, Nazis coup the Ukrainian government in 2014. The Russian people who are living in Donbass are like, maybe not. And in their attempt to secure their own independence, the Nazis come over here and begin shelling them. That's been going on for 8 years, right? They have been asking Russia for help this entire time for 8 years. Putin has been calling for a diplomatic solution for 8 years and has been saying that there is, like, if you guys don't actually listen to me, I am going to do this. So he's been doing that for 8 years. And when he moves into Crimea because it's the same circumstance, right? And so he takes this territory right away because he knows that it's not going to result in a major conflict. Moving into this area is going to result in a major conflict. And so it takes him a long time to build up forces while attempting to seek a diplomatic solution. Okay? No diplomatic solution was reached because the Americans and NATO and Ukraine didn't want to come to the table. Here we are. So, this is the puzzle that I put in front of people when they begin to question me on my position on this. So you're Vladimir Putin. You're the leader of the Russian people, right? The Russian Federation. There you go, right? Bibbidi bobbidi boo. On your border, right outside your border, literally the border outside of it, there are Nazis in a post-coup government backed by NATO and her allies shelling Russians for 8 years. What do you do? That's the puzzle. What do you do? Putin has two choices. Ignore it. Just let it keep happening. Right? Well, how do you think that's going to go? Right? How do you think that's going to go? Just let Ukraine join NATO while Nazis are literally shelling Russians. Like what do you think happens next? Right? And if Ukraine joins NATO, what? You think so they're going to put bombs and they're going to put missiles here. Right? They're going to put missiles here. So the distance from here to here, about 80 miles. Need I remind you? Cuba to Florida, about 80 miles. So we weren't cool when the Soviets were attempting to put missiles in Cuba. Why the fuck would we be cool with this? So, option one. And the Russians made it very plain and very clear. For a long time, they've made it very clear. That's unacceptable. We're not going to accept that. And frankly, nor should they. And I think you're crazy if you think that that's acceptable. I really do. I think that that's crazy go nuts. You might as well be babbling I think you totally normal. Country should totally be if America wants to put bombs directly this far away from fucking the capital, no less. We lost our shit when we were putting missiles, and it was just to hit Miami or Tampa or Florida or any of this shit, or getting into Mexico or this border here, right? It wasn't like the fucking capital fucking city. I think if you accept that, you are nuts. You are crazy go nuts. Right? Now, so that's option one. Unacceptable. The Russians have said it's unacceptable. They will not accept those terms, nor should they, and I think it's nuts to think that they should. So what's option two? You're looking at it. Because the reality is that all of these people who are walking around saying, we should diplomacy. Well, we're not. And it's very specifically America. America is not. In fact, America walks out of negotiations. When the Russians stand up to speak, their ambassadors leave the fucking room. So who hasn't been doing diplomacy this whole time? The Americans. So diplomacy is not an option. It's simply not on the table. Why? Because the Americans don't want it to be on the table. And so I am not saying that I support this war and I support Putin. I am saying that Putin had no alternative. That is what I am saying. That he was drawn into a position where he can't do nothing because nothing creates an existential threat to his nation that he is the leader of. Right? And it is an existential threat. And if you think it isn't, you're crazy. And he can't do diplomacy because they're not talking. So what's left? You're looking at it. That's my position. And also, by the way, Freedom Canada, I really appreciate this. Don't worry, man, not here to flame, here to listen, appreciate your time. That's a beautiful comment, bud. I really appreciate that. So is the solution then for the Ukrainians to surrender and be conquered by Russia? I think the battle in the eastern part should be handled by Ukrainian and not have interference from NATO countries. I mean, ultimately what is going to happen, Freedom, is that the Ukrainians are going to resolve this diplomatically, right? The Donbass region is going to become independent, right? And how do I know this? Because this is what the Russians are actually saying, right? This is what the Russians actually want, right? That like, once you pierce through the like Putin is Hitler and oh my God, they just want to take over Ukraine and then move into Poland and take over Europe. Oh my God, it's Hitler again. Like once you get over that and you actually listen to these guys and listen to what they say, what they want is they want Donbass to be declared independent, right? Which is what the Donbass people want, right? They want Crimea to become officially recognized as part of Russia, which incidentally, that's what the Crimean people want. We've polled them, we've asked, that's what they want. Even if you believe the referendums that they held are fraudulent or whatever, well, we've polled them, right? We sent Americans and the Americans asked them and they told us, yeah, we'd like to be part of Russia. Which makes sense because they're mainly Russian and these guys are Nazis. So this becomes independent, this becomes part of Crimea, and also Ukraine does not join NATO, right? Like those are the terms. The idea that Russia is going to take over Ukraine and this is going to be part of Russia, that's not even on the table. The Russians aren't even interested in it, nor should they be. Like they don't want to take over Ukraine. That creates a series of problems for them, right? That they don't want. Like Russia does not want to share a border with NATO. That's the bottom line. It doesn't want to share a border with NATO. It wants Ukraine to be independent. It wants Ukraine to be independent. That's what it wants. And if NATO is smart, and it isn't, but if NATO was smart, they would say, yeah, Ukraine should be neutral, for sure. That's why Belarus is not actually part of Russia, by the way. Like Belarus is very much they work with Russia, but to the degree that it's fairly well understood. Like for God's sakes, during this invasion, Russia moved troops in through Belarus. So their relationship is very much how Canada's relationship is with the United States, right? We're like buddies, right? But they're not officially part of Russia, so that actually does make Belarus neutral, right? And Belarus is not going to join NATO, and so. And that creates this good buffer, right? So Moscow feels safe, and Moscow should feel safe. And so Ukraine should not join NATO. This will become independent. It didn't, and what's so fucked up is that this didn't need to happen at all. Like none of this needed to happen. Like this is what's so fucked up, right? Like this is what's so fucked up. If Ukraine had just been like, yeah, we're just not going to join NATO, that's fine. Like we'll trade with Russia, we'll trade with NATO, like we'll work with this. And it's even fucked up to this degree, Freedom, that Ukraine was talking about joining the EU, right? And Moscow's position on Ukraine joining the EU was like, yeah, off you go. You can join the EU. That's fine. Join the EU, right? Just don't join this military alliance that was created to destroy Russia. I think that is right, Phobo. I think that there are other countries that are going to join NATO and also join the EU. It is definitely drawing lines and people are picking sides. That's definitely happening, without a doubt. But I do think that at the end of the day, Moscow saw this as an existential threat. And the reality is that you've got Nazis bombing Russians. Like, this is a provocation of war. Like, there's no other way to describe that. Like, Nazis bombing Russians on the Russian border. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine if, let's say, I don't know, let's say Toronto rolled up right here. Just right fucking here. Went right into the, there's got to be a little town over here, right on the border. Right? Like Sarnia. Just rolled up to Sarnia, right? There's Detroit. Rolled up to Sarnia and just started fucking shelling it. Well, you think the Americans are just going to not say anything about that? You think they're just going to ignore that? No. No. That's a serious fucking thing. That's very serious. And we just don't talk about the Donbass war. We don't talk about it. We don't know anything about it. We pretend and we say shit like this. We're like, when polled, Canadians are just like, which is more responsible for the war? Aggressive actions taken by Vladimir Putin to expand Russia's power. Only 10% of us actually say Russian trying to protect innocent people in Ukraine from persecution and genocide, which is the Donbass war. Only 10% of us. So either this 90% doesn't know about it, or, and I think there is a good degree of this, by the way, or people do know about the Donbass war and they don't care. Like, they don't care. Yeah, the Nazis that could the Ukrainian government should go over and just bomb the shit out of Russians in Donbass. That's fine. Right? Like, so the real, like, if we wanted to avoid this war, if we wanted to say, like, no war, right? Which, that's a fine position. You can say no war. But the anti-war position struggles with the puzzle. What do you do about the circumstance, right? Because reality exists. Like, sorry, like, there are aggressors. And who's the aggressor? It's not actually Russia. That Russia joins the war. It doesn't start the war. And so the true solution, if you were in the no war camp, is Ukraine stays neutral. And also, hey, don't coup the government. How about that? How about you just don't coup the government, right? How about you just let Ukraine deal with being Ukraine? That's not how we operate here. And it's for the most pathetic reasons, if you ask me. I think it really is just to sell weapons. Like, that's at the bottom of all of it. It really is just the West being like, we could sell more weapons and make more money selling weapons. Because I don't think the West actually thinks things through. I don't think they actually plan, right? It's all just chaos. Let the market decide, right? Well, the market's deciding, right? The market's deciding, and the market has said, you know what makes a lot of weapons? Killing people. So I hope that answers your questions, Freedom. I'm happy to be challenged on this. But to really summarize my position, I am not sitting here saying Putin is an infallible leader. We should always listen to everything Putin says. He's a genius. He's the greatest leader that ever lived, and if he wants to invade Ukraine, then I'm in favor of it. It's not my position. And in fact, I think you can criticize Putin and should criticize Putin. There are a lot of things you can criticize Putin for. I think that he didn't have a choice. I really do. I think that if he had have made the other decision that was on the table, he would go down in history as one of the worst world leaders of all time. Like, of all time. Like, literally, like, a complete betrayal of his own populace forever. Like, literally allowing your antagonizer, which is NATO, to put significant firepower right on your fucking border. The Russian people would curse your name forever. The next leaders of Moscow would spit on you. You would be buried in an unmarked grave and no one would celebrate you. You would be one of the most despicable, most cowardly leaders in world history if that's how you that's what you did, right? So I don't think he had a choice. And that's my position more than anything. I just don't think he had a choice. Yeah, Gorbachev would be like that, yeah. Go do a Pizza Hut commercial. The referendum has multiple problems with it. However, survey after survey shows there's an 80% that supports the decision. Yeah, like, you can critique that referendum, and you should, right? It's correct to critique that referendum. One could make the argument that the Crimean referendum happened under duress, which, yeah, there's something to that. But yeah, the reality is, like, we've talked to them. Like, Harvard has talked to them. Very, very trustworthy American sources have talked to these guys. They want to be part of Russia, and it's basically uncontroversial at this point. Nobody. Yeah, Pizza Hut suspended investment in Russia. The end of Gorbachev's legacy. Gorbachev opened the door for Pizza Hut, and now they're gone. Bye-bye, Gorbachev. has said they suspect Russia will do a biochemical attack as a false flag. Well, here's a great opportunity for me to go use the washroom. Here's Richard Medhav talking about secret U.S. biolabs in Ukraine exposed. I've been very skeptical about the biolab thing until I ran across this document, which I read on this stream 2 days ago. And because my complaint about the biolab theories, it seemed very conspiracy theory, like Bigfoot or any of that kind of stuff. And then I found this article, and it's loaded with source documents. It's loaded with source documents talking about the bioweapons programs that the United States is funding. And just absolutely to the teeth loaded. And it talks about the 11, it confirms 11 bioweapons labs, or at least biolabs, in Ukraine. Here's the documents. Here's the documents. And anytime I talk about this article, I always do the same thing. I'm going to share it with you guys. If you take a look at it and you think you can call bullshit, please do. Please do. I would gladly listen to someone debunk this. I don't want... oh, Adam, are you saying that because you shared that with me? Someone shared that with me. Was it you? Adam, take credit. Take credit, dude. For sure. Take credit. Like, be upfront. I don't remember that kind of shit. I remember big meta shit. I don't remember, like, little interactions. And, like, someone gave me this or this happened. So if that's you, Adam, that gave me that, please take credit. Quite seriously. I just can't see how this is going to improve relations amongst Ukrainians and Russians. If the Donbass splits, you might even see a rise in far-right groups with neo-Nazi ties. Eric did. Fantastic, Eric. Thanks, bud. Yeah. I think that that's probably accurate, Freedom. Like, I don't think that it's going to... Like, and here, hold on. I'm going to play this from Richard Medhurst while I go use the bathroom and get some water, refresh my water. And then we can quickly talk about, oh man, we're almost at the end of the show. Holy shit. And from Daniel Hemphill. Don't know if I've ever seen you around here, bud. Or is that just Dan? How you doing, bud? How you doing? Okay.
Gaitan Jiva, a Bulgarian investigative journalist and Middle East correspondent. She's also the founder of Arms Watch, which is an independent investigative journalism platform that tracks weapons and documents war crimes. Diliana, it's my pleasure to welcome you on the program. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Diliana, you posted on Twitter that the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, they deleted from their website all these documents about 11 Pentagon-funded biolaboratories in Ukraine. You know, I've read your work, and I know you've covered this topic a lot. You've been on the ground reporting on it. Could you maybe tell us a bit more about these biolaboratories? What are they doing there?
The United States has funded at least 11 biolaboratories in Ukraine over the last years. And in addition to these 11 biolaboratories, the Pentagon has contracted American private company to rebuild and equip 2 new biolaboratories in Ukraine's capital, Kiev, and in Odessa. The end date of this contract is 2023. What is the purpose of the Pentagon funding such military program in Ukraine? Not only in Ukraine. The Pentagon has funded biolaboratories in 25 countries around the world, and the Pentagon has been operating such biolaboratories in 25 countries around the world. The sum that has been allocated so far is $2.5 billion. Why would the Pentagon spend, or the US government spend $2.5 billion on the health of foreign citizens instead of on the health of its own citizens? This is a question that makes no sense.
Like, this is the woman who produced this document. She's the same, right? So Richard Medvedev has, and of course he's leaned into Ukraine, of course. There's a couple of commentators who really have. Is that true, bud? Did I finally hit 1,000? That's the source document. You know, it's just dawning on me right here. It's just dawning on me right here that, you know, even if I apply for YouTube and now comes the CIA, even if I apply for YouTube and it doesn't go anywhere, and even if it all falls apart, even if I get banned, even if all of the shitty things that exist in my consciousness happening, I'm like really realizing right now, you know, I did it. No, all of that is out of my control, you know? I can't do anything about that. That's my fear. That's the Leviathan. That's the thing I'm scared of. But all of that, I can't control any of that. That's out of my control. That's up to them. That's what they want to do. But I did it. I did it. I did it. I literally started this channel by doing recordings of my thoughts while I was walking home from work. I used to work at a toy store. And I would spend all evening reading the news and seeing the news, and then go to bed and wake up to go to work, and then I would spend all day at work thinking about the news that I saw. And then I would walk home, and it would take me about a half hour to get home. And while I was walking home, I would just record myself, and I just decided, fuck it, like I'll just record myself. And I don't need a big setup. I don't need any of this kind of stuff. I got my phone. I'll just record myself, and I'll talk while I walk home. And it took me, and I didn't start it thinking it was gonna do anything. Honestly, I did it because I wanted to. That's it. I did it because I just wanted to. I had always wanted to. And I had always avoided it because I'd always felt odd about it. I always felt like I would get made fun of, or people would think I was stupid for doing it. But then I started to see people like be successful at it. And I just started thinking, man, I should have just done this when I thought that I should have done it at first. And so I just started. And then suddenly, it took me a year to get 100 subscribers. It took me a year to get 100 subscribers, and I just kept doing it. I just kept spreading it around in Twitter and on Reddit and all that. And I'll always remember the first person who decided to give me money for it, Ward Smith, who pops in occasionally, right? He was the first person to think, yeah, I'll give you $1. I'll never forget it. That meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me. And that was when I started to think like, oh, maybe I could do this, and maybe this could be successful. And then I went through a breakup. I got like literally the year of the pandemic. I broke up with my girlfriend of 10 years. And then got let go from my job. And so I decided I'm going to turn this into a live stream. I'm going to do the live stream. And it took me about a year to get 100 subscribers, and it's taken me less than a year to get to 1,000. And 1,000 was always my goal, because 1,000 was when I could turn around and say to YouTube, like, hey, put ads on my shit. Give me some money for this. and I did it. I did it. It's like literally the first time that I've wanted to do something because I wanted to do it, not because I was like pursuing some kind of abstract goal or something. I like literally said, like, I want 1,000 subscribers on a YouTube channel that's about politics, and I started to do it, and I did it. And I don't know what's going to come next, and I don't know what's going to happen next, but they can't take this away from me. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for being here on this journey with me. Thank you so much for believing in me. You know, I'm just someone who reads the news. That's literally who I am. I'm just somebody who just reads the news and who refuses to believe bullshit anymore. That's it. I just look at the news and I go, probably not. That's like my seminal position. That's it. If someone was to ask me, hey, what's your like central position on most things? My position is very simple. I read the news and I say probably not. And then I look around and try to see, well, what everybody else is saying. And if I am confronted with a position where it's Western media says this, anyone else says this, I usually just go with what the anyone else is saying. Because I don't believe the West. I don't believe them at all. When have they ever told the truth? About anything. Ever. Like... I have 1,000 subscribers on a YouTube channel. Now your next goal, real, 10K subs. Thanks, grinning. You made it to the starting line. Grats. That's a good idea, actually, Major. I want a probably not shirt. Yeah. Now I can actually get merchandise, guys. I can actually get merchandise. Like, think about that. I can start asking you guys, like, hey, what kind of, like, this logo. What, that logo, what do you want that logo on a shirt? What color shirt? I could get stickers, lighters, yeah, just now flash your boob or to and you're rich. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I like the probably not shirt. That's a good idea. Just straight up, probably not. Like, maple syrup. Now you're talking, David. Now you're talking. That might be a tough one, though. That might be a tough one. I don't necessarily want to get ads for Papa Stalin. I remember, Barnabas, you came real early. Yeah, you were early days. It's my favorite stream, even if I don't always agree with you. The vibe is cool. I actually learned shit. That's nice, David. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And this, I think, is so important for me to say over and over again. I don't really care if you agree with me. Like, what matters to me more than anything? What matters to me more than anything is just that the left gets a seat at the table. That's it. The left gets a seat at the table. Because the left has not really gotten a seat at the table, right? Especially since 9/11, right? The left was essentially purged from corporate media. The left doesn't really have a seat at the table, and we're starting to see how that is negatively affecting the society. That people with just very simple ideas and simple strategies and simple thoughts are not really even being heard at all. They're not allowed to say the most basic things. Like housing. Like, give homeless people houses. Like you're literally not allowed to say that on corporate media. You're just not allowed to say it. Because it means less money for the death cult. Less money for rich people, right? Yeah, keep the Discord alive. Always a good opportunity. Say like, share, subscribe, right? Give me money. My Patreon is down below. Yeah, even $1 helps. Gets you into the Discord. Congrats, Professor John, on your first 1K. Here's for 1 million more. Wouldn't that be something? Beer and nachos for everyone tonight. Tabs on me. Again, John, big congrats. You did it. I knew tonight was the night. You did, didn't you? You called it early, didn't you? Someone did. I'll say it was you. Sure. Just shows if you put your mind into anything, anything is possible. You should do these moose antlers that people were on their head with the logo on it. Oh, okay. A Velcro-backed fabric patch from your logo. In his early days, Stalin too asked for money with a gun. Yeah. Yeah, the Bolsheviks very early on, they essentially funded their effort with train robberies. Like they were like straight up like Western desperados. I've said it over and over again. If somebody actually made like an HBO special about the Bolsheviks, like Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky, and even a bunch of the other guys, I think it would be the most popular show on television. People would love it. Like those guys were like renegades, man. They were renegades and like cowboys, right? Like I feel like if you basically, like if you renamed Joseph Stalin Joe Star, and you set, instead of it being set in Russia, you set it on like Mars, and it was like a Mars colony. And instead of it being SARS, it was just like the oligarch class or whatever you want to call them, right? And if you set it on Mars, called Joseph Stalin Joe Star, Lenin is just like Leonard, right? Trotsky is just like, I don't know, Trevor or whatever. Stalin liked American Westerns. I mean, he looks like he liked American Westerns for sure. Like, he looked like it. Are you kidding me? The mustache? Are you kidding me? Oh, yeah, there is already a Joe Star. But you know what I mean? Like, if you named him, I don't know, like Joe... Or just fucking call him Stalin. Who cares? Some will call me Tim. We should write a Band of Brothers script about Lenin from Return to Death. Like, yeah, like, there's some who call me Tim. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. No, but I really think so. Like, some of the stories, like they did train robberies. Like, and some of the, like, when Stalin gets arrested and sent to Siberia and then escapes twice. The first time he escapes, he gets recaptured because it's too cold and he freezes, and so he gets captured again. And then he escapes again. And what's wild is that Trotsky did too. And so, like, imagine that story, man. Like, you're looking at, like, Trotsky and Stalin, and both of them interacting, and they fucking hated each other, right? And Lenin is sort of the glue that keeps it all together while it's going on. And then you'd watch them as they went from being like roguish renegades who are like Robin Hood-style figures, right? Robbing trains, robbing rich people, right? The negotiations between like the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks and all this kind of stuff, until eventually you get to the fucking revolution. They like overthrow this power structure. I bet you when they overthrew everything, America would be like, yes, they did it. Yeah, we'd love it. We'd fucking love it. It's like a Robin Hood story. But you'd have like Trotsky over here, and you'd have Stalin over here, and they fucking hate each other. And there's like the Lenin in the middle, and then like the whole power struggle as they go through, and then the fucking shit that happens while they're in charge, and then the conflict between Trotsky and Stalin. Are you kidding me? This is filmable. This is filmable. This is a watchable story, for sure. And how I would absolutely approach it is I would tell all of the people involved in it that the battle between Stalin and Trotsky will only be satisfying for me if you can't really pick a side. If both Stalin and Trotsky are relatable and believable and likable in their own way, while simultaneously you understood why these two fucking really don't like each other, why they're always just at each other. So as a communist, do you want our country to implement that system? Here's where the conversation gets really interesting, Freedom, is that and the Chinese are right on this, which is that each country is going to implement communism in its own way, because each country has its own history and its own backing, right? Like, and its own culture. So what the Soviet Union did in regards to its implementation or its move towards communism, because no one's ever become communism, right? We've always been transitioning towards communism, and then the apple cart has been upset, right? That I would say that what's happening in China today is probably the most successful transition, but they're still on the path, and that's what they say. They say that they're still on the path, right? And should we begin to implement or transition into communism, we will do it in our own way, and it will be different from what other countries do. And so my feeling is that I want us to begin moving in that direction. And fundamentally, like, how I view communism and the core position, like the linchpin of what makes communism communism, is that it is a people first, or if you prefer, worker first perspective. Like, we have been operating for the last 40 years under the idea that, oh, we'll just give all of our money to the capitalists, all of our money to the owners, and then that will trickle down to the workers. That's been more or less the narrative, right? Trickle down economics, all that kind of stuff, right? That what Marx would say, yeah, so you want to give all the money to the bourgeoisie, and the bourgeoisie will then trickle that money down into the proletariat. Yeah, that's not going to work, right? That's fucking not going to work. I've got programs to write scripts, bud. Lenin should be the protagonist. Ensemble cast, I should say. Ensemble cast. And, what the fuck was I just saying? Right. And that doesn't work. Like, that capitalist idea of, like, free market, let the market decide, which is a lot like saying let chaos reign, right? Not likely not going to work, right? Let chaos reign? Okay. We're seeing what that means. Whereas I think to be a communist is to say, no, you should structure your society for the benefit of the people, of the workers, right? Of the proletariat, if you prefer. And the structuring of the society is kind of what's up for debate. And yeah, exactly. You see the $21.99 free market Campbell soup? Exactly, dude. Exactly. And and if you are constantly moving towards, have a good one, David. If you're constantly moving towards this initiative of structuring your society for the benefit of the mass of people, of the proletariat, then you are moving towards a communist vision. And there's lots of theory written about this transition and how things will ultimately unfold. But the truth is that no one really knows what it's going to look like ultimately. And on top of that, I think that there's probably more than one road, which is what the Chinese believe, right? The Chinese believe that there's more than one path and more than one road, which I think is very wise of them to do, because by saying that, they have opened the door to many different people trying many different things, which I think is what we need to be doing right now. But the first thing that we need to do, if we are going to move in that direction, is be rid of these bourgeoisie, be rid of these capitalists. Like, at least get power away from them, at least get control over them. What about Che and the Castros? I mean, I would say that they were fairly successful, but they've had a boot on their back the whole time. That's the real. That's why critiquing Cuba is so difficult, right? Like, because you have to do it from this understanding that, like, they've had a fucking, like, weight on their chest the whole time. So when you go into Cuba, like, the first thing that strikes you is that everyone is materially poor, right? There's not a lot of stuff, you know? And so Americans look at that and be like, well, they're poor, so communism doesn't work. Meanwhile, they literally have a boot on the chest of the Cuban people. And I would argue that under those circumstances, they're doing very well, right? And I think the biggest success, if you ask me about what's going on in Cuba, is the camaraderie. Like, the people of Cuba themselves, while they are materially poor, they seem fairly happy. They seem fairly content with what's going on, because they all understand that they really are all in it together, and they are all experiencing this all together, and they understand that there are sacrifices that need to be made, and they understand that their things could be better, but they know who their enemy is, and they know what's going on, right? And if we actually cared about the Cuban people, like these capitalists' critique of communist Cuba is always so disingenuous, because they don't care about the Cuban people. If they actually cared about the Cuban people, they'd lift the sanctions. Like, the trouble that Cuba has is that it can't sell anything to anyone. It doesn't have access to the international market, right? And that may be changing, by the way, with China, right? Integrating them into the Belt and Road Initiative. But, like, when I was in Cuba, they had factories, like cigar factories, that they weren't using. They had plantations they weren't using, because they had nobody. They couldn't sell anything to anybody, right? And exactly, and the embargo, right? And if you can't sell anything, well, then why produce it, right? And so, like, they've got economic road. They've got economic room to grow. And if China is actually integrating them into the Belt and Road Initiative, you watch. They're going to start growing tobacco, making those famed cigars, right? Making sugar, right? Making more of that rum, selling it to the Chinese market, right? And Cuba will become wealthy. And if you ask me, the thing that Cuba needs more than anything is just tools, just basic tools. Like, when I was in Cuba, there was a guy who was he had managed to get his hands on some marble tiling, and he was tiling his home, right? And he was like tiling his home, and there was this one section where he had to drill a hole in one of the marble tiles in order to slide it over a pipe. But he was doing it with a hand chisel, and it's marble, right? So it's taking him a long time to do. And we asked him, like, how long do you think that's going to take him? And he said probably about a week, right? And I remember my dad looking at me, and he gave me kind of a face at the time, and then later on he said to me, like, yeah, like, just use a Dremel. I have a Dremel. Literally a $20 Dremel from Canadian Tire. And you could just go and be done with that in 5 minutes. Like, and so what they're really suffering with is a lack of tools. and they don't have the ability to make tools. They don't have the the capacity to do that, right? They would need to have the tools to make the tools. And so what they need to be doing first and foremost is getting access to a larger market and then trading for these basic tools. And like a guy with just a series of electric tools could go around Cuba and just be a handyman, and that could be his whole thing. He'd be rich. Like you'd be fucking wealthy off your ass if all you did is walk around with like hand drills and Dremels and shit. Like that's all you'd have to do. But yeah, so they need access to the markets, and they've been strangled. And I'd say under those circumstances, they've done very well for themselves. What will happen once the markets open? What will happen after that? Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. So far so good in terms of how they're surviving. And I mean, you could argue, and I think you should argue, that communism has proven itself to be quite resilient, right? That under this duress, under this stress, the communist ideology and the communist system has withstood it, and it hasn't collapsed, it hasn't overthrown, it hasn't found itself in disarray. The populace hasn't split up into factions and all this kind of stuff. Like they have maintained their stability. And that's fundamentally, I think, the difference between a communist structure and a capitalist structure, is that it seems like the communist structure is more stable, and whereas capitalist structures are unstable. And you can destabilize communist structures, as we saw with the fall of the Soviet Union, but it requires a fairly concerted effort and also internal work. It looks to me as though you can't overthrow a communist structure from without. That it can withstand external pressure. That the only way that you can really overthrow a communist structure is by infecting it from within. And the Chinese are very aware of that, by the way. The Chinese are very aware of that, and have worked really, really hard recently to get rid of the corruption from their political structure to maintain this communist project. And fundamentally, at the end of the day, communists plan. They create plans. And I think the biggest success of the Chinese communist system is that it successfully passed the planning baton down the way. Like here in the West, we're so used to a politician coming into power and then scrapping the plan or scrapping anything that the old guy was doing and then doing something new, right? Or starting from scratch. That's not what happens in China. In China, they pass the baton, right? And if there's any changes that leader wants to do, it's done through a process. So it's a transition into a change. It's not simply scrap what that guy was doing, right? And we don't think about that, right? They create plans, all right, Tiananmen Square. Oh, bud. Tiananmen Square is one of the great propaganda moments. So the Tiananmen Square was a attempt at a color revolution. The CIA fomented a color revolution with a group of students who literally killed military personnel in Tiananmen Square. They were literally revolting against the system, and the Chinese government quelled it, which is like, yeah. And of course, Westerners are going to report on that, like, the Chinese suppress its own populace. Yeah, exactly. A neoliberal coup in China. It was a coup attempt, bud. A color revolution is what it was. And here in the West, we report on the Tiananmen Square as if the Tiananmen Square massacre. What we do is we take pictures of the CIA-funded color revolutionaries killing military people and then pretend like it was the Chinese government that did that. Right? Come at me, bro. Come at me. And you want to talk about the famines? What about Mao's famine? You want to talk about that? You want to talk about the Holodomor? How about that? You want to talk about that? Come at me, bro. I do this professionally. I have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. You're saying it was a CIA op? Yeah, it was a CIA op, right? Like, America doesn't want China to have a stable communist government. They want a neoliberal Western government, right? And the CIA was heavily involved in the. Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, bud. Thank you, bud. And I mean, the CIA involvement throughout all of these places, throughout the CIA was instrumental in the collapse of the Soviet Union, for example, which wasn't very peaceful. The citizens of the Soviet Union were not happy about it. Yeah, the Tiananmen Square protest was started by a bunch of spoiled bourgeoisie university kids who worships the West. Suggest you look up who Chai Ling is. Yeah, there you go. And I said, remember when Nazi landlords burnt their crops and selling it to Papa Stalin? Yeah. George Soros outright said that he was one of the core people to fund the coup. Here you go. Here you go, Freedom Canada. Right? The chat coming at you. And honestly, Freedom, no hate at all, bud. No hate at all. Because, the propaganda runs deep, eh? Like, the propaganda runs deep. It's real. Like, it's tough to get rid of. And it's tough to understand, like, exactly how heavily we've been propagandized. Things that we consider just true. Like, everybody believes it. Like, of course, it's got to be true. Literally everyone believes it. Turn out to be complete and total bullshit. Like, complete and total fabrication. Right? Like, the big one for me very recently was, the big famine that happened under Mao during the Great Leap Forward. Right? Even I believed that must have occurred. Everybody talks about it. Like, everybody talks about it. It's constantly brought up. It's talked about with and of course the chat agrees with you. They're all commies, aren't they? Oh yeah, that's true, Freedom. But please look into it. I suggest you do. And I wouldn't be saying it if it was a lie, bud. And if you can show otherwise, please do. Right? But Mao's Great Leap Forward, right? What's the claim, right? 30 million to 100 million people died, right? 30 million to 100 million people died under Mao during the Great Leap Forward. Okay, that's the claim. So where was the refugee crisis? Like, you're telling me, let's use the lowball figure, 30 million people died. That's what the claim is. 30 million people died under Mao in the Great Leap Forward. So when the Irish potato famine happened, 1 million people died. And we knew it was happening while it was happening, right? And how did we know that it was happening while it was happening? Because 1 million people ran away from it, right? They fled. So we had an enormous refugee crisis with the Irish potato famine. And but under Mao, there's no evidence of a refugee crisis. If you've got 30 million people dead due to starvation, you've got 30 million people fleeing from a famine, right? You've got 30 million people fleeing. And there's no evidence of a refugee crisis. So what happened? Like, where's your refugee crisis? So it's just fucking bullshit. There was an Indian professor who broke the story down, and he was like, where did the story even come from? Where did the narrative even come from? And the narrative of the famine during Mao's Great Leap Forward came out of the 80s. So Mao's Great Leap Forward is like the end of the 50s, early 60s. But then in the 1980s, a couple statisticians looked through Chinese stats of population, and they futzed with the numbers and fucked around and then made a claim that, there's 30 million people missing here, must have been a famine. And that's literally where the story came from. It didn't come from like photographic evidence, eyewitness accounts. Didn't come from international observers. There's literally not a single international observer that was talking about the famine that killed 30 million people while it happened. And this is something like, and the reason why I'm talking about this is that like the National Post will publish articles with this claim in it, right? Slavoj, what's his name? Slavoj Žižkov, right? The people everybody loves, right? This philosopher everybody loves. There's a guy who talks like this. He claims he says that happened, right? He propagates that narrative. No evidence of it. Not a single eyewitness testimony. Not a photograph. Not a single international observer confirming the story. Like, literally no one. It just came out of the 1980s because a couple of statisticians started saying it, and the press just started saying it. And nobody stood up and said, nah, probably not. Well, here I am. Probably not. Where is your source about the Indian scholar? Oh, bud, I don't have it at my fingertips. I'll find it. I'll find it again, Eric. I'll bring it to you. I think it's one of these things where I bookmarked it forever ago. Did I bookmark it even? You know what, man? I'll find that. I'll find it for you. And I got to get better at this. Do I have it? You know what? I don't have it at my fingertips. I will. I think I might have to ask around again, and dig that back up. But I will. I will. And why didn't I? I should have bookmarked that. Anyway. But I mean, even without this Indian scholar, like, where's the refugees? Where's the fucking refugees, you know? Okay, guys. I gotta close it down. I actually have other work that I need to do. I've been putting off reading the audiobooks, and so I gotta catch up. Gotta do some catch-up work. And gotta pay those bills. Always remember, guys, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars to try to make it so you don't realize it, and you'll just stay the good little commodity that you're supposed to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.